Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Joined the White Dragon Empress Part 12. Before we start, please go support AbrahamJosueSalasRoa for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 48 Team DXD vs clippath. Beliefs. Yeah. And for a moment I thought I should intervene. Messiah was sitting on a somewhat tall rocky building, looking at Gressel's corpse on the ground. He arrived at the scene shortly after Serierg used his new form against his opponent and admits that it was an epic fight. Until he saw how the Bale group retreated from the battlefield. Well, it seems that from here I will have to start acting. Putting his hands in the pockets of his trench coat, Messiah climbed down from that rocky building and began to walk nonchalantly across the battlefield. The creatures on both sides killed each other mercilessly and fiercely, but that did not intimidate the young fictionalist. It was at that Messiah stopped his walk, since a large group of those clippath creatures appeared in front of him. From his point of view, these creatures reminded him a little of those in fiction movies or Aliens or Resident Evil. But anyway, I guess I can play with you. Calmly and shrugging his shoulders, Messiah took his hands out of his pockets and instantly he would snap the fingers of his right hand and then inside of him, a dome barrier formed above it, covering several diameters on each side. It will be in less than a minute or 30 seconds. The creatures immediately launched themselves to attack and want to kill the young fictionalist, but they won't. Messiah's eyes shone after saying those words, and then suddenly, the claws of the creatures that should have hit the young man ended up digging into the ground, leaving the creatures somewhat immobilized. Now, kill each other. As if obeying this order, clippath's creatures began to attack each other, clawing, biting, dismembering or mutilating themselves, etc. Messiah watched without expression as those creatures killed each other due to their ability. The longiness of him, Tilo's karma, has the ability to create and enforce choices that are not possible by force. In other words, it is as if you were the world itself and you can decide what can happen and what cannot, a power that alters the laws of the world and one that not even the gods can easily oppose. And that still doesn't activate his balance breaker. Messiah would then see how more creatures went against him, sighing, and with a mental order with Tilo's karma, these creatures remained paralyzed in his place, and then Messiah would raise his right hand, snapping his fingers, and within seconds the ground beneath those creatures began to open and they fell into the happy hole. Newly formed, only to be swallowed in the end by a kind of large crocodile mouth. And within seconds, said crocodile mouth disappeared as if it were fog. This other longiness of his, Innovate Clear, has the ability to create an ideal world in another dimension, similar to Lost Dimension, with the added ability to create living beings, such as people or monsters, similar to Annihilation Maker. However, anything made within the world of Innovate Clear can only exist in that world. And the barrier that Messiah created comes from the power of said longiness, a small world where he is in control, and his word is divine law. In addition to creating their own beings. And he doesn't use balance breaker with this one either, for now. Well, anyway. Messiah would shrug his shoulders, bored. I guess I better start walking to clean the battlefield. But that said, the young fictionalist began to walk carelessly across the battlefield with his hands in his pockets. Every step he took seemed to exude power in his own world. It didn't matter how many of those creatures went against him, as long as they are within the barrier of his small world, they will not be able to do anything to him. He ordered them to kill each other and they obeyed him, beings without consciousness even though they have power, and they only killed because, pathetic. Messiah just continued walking nonchalantly and giving mental orders to his enemies to kill each other. And already somewhat bored, Messiah let one of those creatures approach him. Said creature looked humanoid, with sharp bones protruding from parts of its body and its head resembling the skull of a ram. The skeletal creature attacked Messiah with its claws, but the young man with his power made the attack towards him deflect and not hit him, and then grabbed the happy creature by its neck, and with his power, he prevented this thing from fighting. It is quite unfortunate that creatures like you do not have the will, it is pitiful. And even more so because your souls were used for this. Playing with life this way is cruel. Messiah looked at the creature with some pity. Once we finish this, you will be able to enjoy eternal rest, or have the opportunity to return to the world as other lives. That being said, using his power to control the laws of the world, Messiah tore off the head of that creature, letting its body fall to the ground, and threw the head in his hand somewhere else. He admits that if it weren't for his too longiness, he wouldn't have been able to do that with just brute force. Ironic, even he acknowledges it, with or without weapons or powers, humans are weak. And regardless of the means, they will use any means to win, that is how humanity fights. A medium of which they are proud. Cuckoo. That was interesting, Brad. Following the origin of that voice, the young fictionalist saw a young man who seemed to be in his 20s, was thin, and did not seem to have any type of physique. His hair was dark blue, and he released great pressure and an aura that was on another level. I don't know what you did, but that was interesting. Yeah. What can I do for you, Demon-san? Asked Mitsaya with a sarcastic half smile. And he internally thought that maybe this guy would be a good guinea pig for his skills. Oh. I apologize. Where are my models? The blue-haired demon would give a slight mocking bow. My name is Celian. And I am a pure artificial demon, you don't need to know more. I see. An artificial demon, huh? Mitsaya stroked his chin, looking thoughtful. I guess your mission is to kill anyone who is in your way, right? The young man spoke with funny sarcasm. You could say. Celian would shrug his shoulders unimportantly and laugh like a madman. Although I want to see how everyone dies, just as I like the idea of killing. I even wait for my enemies to beg me. Yeah. Then we have a problem. Mitsaya would take his hands out of his pockets and would become alert. I have a duty, so. I'm sorry, but you must die. Unless you want to quit for good. Demons never run away from pathetic humans. Celian's aura would begin to rise higher and higher. It is you who flee from us. Instantly, Mitsaya quickly senses something unusual in the environment. Could it be some special power of this demon? If so. To discover what it is, he would have his long-eyedness manipulate the law of his small world and as if wanting to prevent any attack from hitting him. A kind of crater formed next to the young man. Mitsaya look at that with a raised eyebrow, for it to have crushed the concrete like that, then. I see. Mitsaya would go to see the artificial demon, who was surprised by the phenomenon that occurred. You have the power to compress matter, right? TCH. I don't know what happened, but that's how it is. Celian admitted without importance, but don't think it will happen again. Using his power again, the demon would begin to compress everything around him, hoping to crush Mitsaya, but like the previous time, his power only ended up affecting the surroundings, while the young fictionalist continued standing coolly in his place and with a tiny smile. Damn, why doesn't my power give you? Exclaimed Celian, somewhat frustrated. Mitsaya for his part only began to analyze possibilities. If he is not mistaken, Celian always has to look at where he will cast the effect of his ability. It is somewhat similar to Gaspar Vladi's power, which can only stop time for those within sight range of him. And without a doubt it is the most accurate, since the demon has never moved his hand or any other limb to use his ability. Oh well, he will be done with this in a couple of minutes. He can't waste time playing with this poor devil. Celian continued to use his ability, focusing his sight solely on Mitsaya. But the result was the same, his ability deflected and compressed the surroundings. Because. Why can't I hit you? Celian no longer hides his frustration at not being able to hit his attacks on Mitsaya. You can't hit me, because. Mitsaya would stroke a lock of his hair. It is the law of the world, my world. Whatever you do. You can never give me. Why you? Celian gritted his teeth in anger, and. Don't mock ye with that scream, the artificial demon's aura suddenly shot up to great levels. With this, the demon would make use of his ability again. Compressing Mitsaya's surroundings into a circle, and the young man was in the center of that circular crater, intact, with the only part not compressed, where he was standing. Damn angry, Celian decided to launch a powerful demonic blast at the brat, but. As if nothing had happened, his blast deflected and came back at him. He wanted to dodge it, but. He couldn't, or rather. The blast returned from him simply hit him squarely, without further ado. The blood that came out of his mouth was proof of his pain. Damn. What have you done? I have told you. This is my world, and here I am the divine authority, the law itself. Mitsaya simply shrugged his shoulders. But if you want me to attack, that's fine. Snapping his fingers. Several humanoid beings appeared around Celian, surrounding him. And these beings were the same as Mitsaya, they were copies. Mitsaya used the power of Innovate Clear to create said beings, and he could give them any shape he desired. Celian was stunned by the copies of Mitsaya, that when he tried to focus on the real one from a distance, it was no longer there. Could he have hidden himself? Or did he get mixed up among the copies of him? Even so. Don't make fun of me, brat. Celian would use his ability on one of the copies, compressing it and destroying it. But seeing that the others were still intact, it was proof that this was not the original. And when he wanted to extend his ability to affect everyone, instantly, one of Mitsaya's copies raised his arm, and said arm turned into a blade. And with that, the copy attacked Celian head-on, but the demon used his hands to deflect the attack and destroy the copy, compressing it. With this, the other copies turned their arms into blades and began to attack Celian, who began to defend himself as best he could. And using his high-level ability, he compresses all the copies until they are destroyed, but. Instantly, more copies appeared and surrounded him, starting to attack him again. First damned, what are these copies? At that moment, one of the copies attacked Celian at high speed with his blade. The blade pierced the demon's right shoulder, causing his arm to be severed, and he fell to the ground. But that great pain coursing through his body, Celian falls to his knees and leans forward. The pain caused him to lose consciousness and become paralyzed. Yeah. Although I don't like torturing others, sometimes you have to make exceptions. Messiah sighs, seeing the state of his opponent as unimportant. He used Tilo's karma so that the attack of his copy would not only hit and cut off his arm, but that he would also suffer a great sensation of pain, similar to what a demon suffers when fully receiving a sacred attack. What a pity, you, who are a thinking being, and although artificial, you could have decided something better for your life. But in the end, you waste it for the empty ambition of destruction of those idiots. Don't mock. Human Celian would begin to rise as he can. We are demons. Evil beings. We must plague chaos, fear, agony and destruction. That's a real demon. What a shame. Messiah would move his hand and then one of the copies of him would turn into a blade floating in the air. And said blade attacked the demon at high speed, cutting off half of his right leg. Celian fell to the ground as he screamed in agony, with blood pouring from the wounds of his severed limbs. It's a shame that a life like you is wasted. Messiah would bow his head a little. I hope in another life you are a better person. And no. This. Celian looked everywhere, even on the ground, looking for something and he found it. More creatures of clippath arrived at the place, and the demon smiled at that under his breath. It's not over. Increasing his aura to where it currently can be, he used his ability to a high level, and then suddenly, the bodies of those creatures, both the living and the dead, began to gather together in a grotesque manner, as if their flesh were being separated. Unite. The result of it was a gigantic sphere of flesh from those creatures, and the aura it had was enormous. And possibly because of the pressure that was being exerted on the sphere, flesh and blood were flying everywhere. I didn't expect that. Messiah had some real surprise at what he saw, although he admits that seeing that made him sick. This is a bomb of great destructive power using the bodies of those monstrosities. Celian smiled, believing that he had won. He dies brat. With his power, the demon launched that great meat bomb against Messiah, who was ready to deflect it with his power, but instantly, he saw how that meat bomb seemed to shine, as if it were to explode. Is that what you planned? Wow. Messiah admits that trying to distract him with a sudden explosion is clever, but nothing he can't handle. So using the longinus and his mind at a speed greater than tenths of a second, Messiah not only managed to prevent that meat bomb from exploding in front of him, but also deflected it and turned it against Celian, who watched in horror as his attack was returned. How was it possible? If that should have exploded much earlier, and the explosion that occurred from that meat bomb that even enveloped Celian was such that the surrounding area flew away, even creating a large hole in the ground. How unfortunate. Messiah walked towards that large hole and looked inside it, finding the battered and barely conscious body of Celian, who was breathing erratically. You have condemned yourself just by running into me. How did you you? Celian asked, spitting out some blood and in agony. Simple. And remember this even in death. I am Messiah Kanzaki, the current and only possessor of the last two longinus, Innovate Clear and Tilo's karma. And I bear the title of that being who is equal to or superior to God. Celian was undoubtedly surprised by what he heard and would laugh sarcastically. Kuku. I have the information about the power of each longinus, but there is no information about you. How pitiful. Truly. I am damned. That's right. Messiah nodded. But you choose. You can still beg for your life and I'll let you go. Beg a human. That is more humiliating than receiving a beating. Celian smiled with sarcasm and displeasure. Better kill me. If you let me live. Then I will kill everyone from DXD that I find. Typical of a demon. It's a shame. Messiah shrugged. Is evil's end here? Snapping his fingers. The ground on one side of that crater where the demon was began to open. And out of it would emerge a kind of creature similar to a dragon snake. And said snake, with its open mouth, he began to extend his tongue, which went towards the artificial demon, rolling it up and lifting it up, that snake being ready to eat him. Even if they eliminate the army of these things, more will continue to appear and return to life thanks to the Saint Grail. The resurrection of 666. It is inevitable. Thank you for the warning. Messiah closed his fist after Celian's words, and then that great dragon snake devoured the artificial demon, chewing it in its mouth for a moment before swallowing it. What a horrible way to die. Being devoured. Well, to continue with my duty. The serpent dragon would disappear after the mental order of the young fictionalist, and he began to walk carelessly, again, through the battlefield to clean it. Even if that guy revives for the Saint Grail, he would kill him again if he died. Runs into him. Although he hopes that if the demon called Gressel also returns, hopefully he will take his side. Although that seems unlikely, since those revived by the Saint Grail must obey the one who revived them, being controlled against his will. But anyway, that power was undoubtedly enormous. Athena looked in the direction where Sererg's great power came from, although she could not know it was him. I hope it was one of us who fought against a real monster. The goddess fired a burst of divine aura against a group of those things, killing them and causing others to fly away very injured. Let us hope so, Athena-sama. With one swing of her magic sword, Antianira got rid of the flying creatures near her. On the other hand, on the ship, Ryudomaru fired from his cannons at all the creatures that tried to board him, and at the same time he deployed more small ships and controlled them to disperse across the battlefield and finish off those things. On the front edge of the nave, Seraphil, Gabriel and Penemu looked expectantly at the battle that was taking place. Without a doubt, this is the closest thing to a war. And this seemed to surpass the great biblical war in the underworld civil war. Obviously the three female leaders felt the monstrous power that Sererg released, where only Penemu was capable. Confirmed that it was him and informed his companions. And at the same time they wondered. What kind of opponent did Sererg have to face for him to use the forbidden power of the Regulus Nemia? Be that as it may, they hope that they are well and. Seraphil-sama following that familiar voice, the three leaders saw Kusha in the place. Plus her entire group came out of the big black hole next to her. And everyone seemed a little mistreated, especially Sererg. We had to go back. I'm sorry. And it doesn't matter Kusha-chan, but. What the hell happened to you? Seraphil screamed hysterically when she saw the state of the Baal group. It seemed like they had fought for days. Kukikuku. Let's just say that whoever intercepted us. He was a real monster. Let Sererg say that, all heard and laughing with amusement, it meant he was serious. How? Who? Asked Penemu. Seraphil-sama, Gabriel-sama, Penemu-sama. I think. The matter is more serious than we expected. Kusha's totally serious face denoted that there was a lot to report. And agrees. Razavam was sitting in his seat, crossing his legs and arms with his eyes closed. Seeing the whole situation that was taking place on the battlefield. It's good that he implanted a very special spell in one of those bird creatures so that they could have their eyes out there and be able to know what was happening. Obviously when he saw that his army of monsters was reduced, he used the Saint Grail in his hands to revive his creatures and let them continue the slaughter. Apart from that, he also saw the fights that Gressel and Celian had, in addition to the great demonstration by Sererg and Messiah against those two. In truth, he didn't expect much from Celian, but he hoped he would last longer in battle. That idiot always so confident and arrogant, even with the intellect and knowledge that he gave him, that idiot condemned himself by facing that brat. And he admits that he doesn't want to face him. From Gressel, he can give you cheers for what he's done, although it's a shame that his improved stamina has given way under the pressure. And from what he saw, if he revives him, maybe that idiot will turn against him, better not to risk it. So thinking that it wouldn't hurt to advance his plan a little. Razavam used a Saint Grail in his hands and invoked the souls of Gressel and Celian. One is already a possible traitor and the other is an idiot, so. Raising the chalice, those two souls went to the place they wanted. 666, to guarantee that he wakes up once he gives up. Sign. Very good. Let's see then. Closing his eyes, Razavam's sight shifted from the battlefield to the city of Agrees. He waited a few moments until he smiled as he managed to focus on Issei, Valery and Asia. The three of them are flying at normal speed towards their base. Like in 20 minutes they will be here. Razavam would smile sideways and look behind him to the right side of him. Seeing someone who kept him company. Our little one is coming. Dear. In another part of the battlefield. Dulio and Lint leading the brave saints who were with them had finished off many of the enemies in their part of the field. Griselda sighed at the effort they made, since these although creatures emanated an aura like demons, the sacred attacks did not affect them, and that was scary. But the great teamwork between everyone managed to make the difference, although their priority was to prevent Dulio and Lint from wearing out, since the two of them could be needed later in the worst case scenario. Just then, when they had already finished off a good number of those things, a whitish glow appeared in front of them, and as the glow dissipated, the creatures that were previously dead corpses were now up again and alive, ready for another round. Was this a joke? Ugh. Without a doubt, they are using the Saint Grail to revive these things. Marana sighs somewhat reluctantly at this. It's like dealing with cockroaches. You crush them but they don't die. Even so, we must not give up. Griselda prepared her bow and arrows of light for everything. We just have to hold on. Pray. I better clean this up. Let me join Dezu. Dulio and Lint stood in front of their companions, facing the creatures that were approaching at a somewhat slow pace. Everyone does it very well in that, but sometimes it's good to show off a little. Dulio, with a half smile, began to accumulate a large amount of pale golden wind in his hand. That's right, Dezu. Lint for his part began to accumulate a large amount of purple fire with golden details in his hands. However, Suddenly and out of nowhere. A fierce flame was present in the place, mercilessly burning the newly revived creatures to ashes. Event that left the brave saints very intrigued and, oh, were those their prey? Crom Cru appeared at the scene, not seeming at all affected by fighting so much. Although for him this is nothing. Because if it was like that, it's a shame. And they told me to help anyone who was in danger. Heh. You came at a good time, Crom Cru sama. Griselda was grateful that the crescent circle dragon had come. How good it is to have him on her side. So you're Crom Cru, huh? With that new voice, everyone turned towards where said voice came from, and then, crossing the flames as if nothing had happened, without seeming affected. A young man of about 30 years old appeared in front of them, with reddish-brown hair combed to the side and an omnipotent aura. Which alerted everyone, except Crom Cru. The strongest evil dragon and the traitor, right? Traitor? Crom Cru tilted his head in doubt. If you work for clippath, I'm going to say never swear allegiance to those pathetic devils who need others to fight their battles. Well, the offer they gave me was good, destruction is not something I approve of, and I already got something better. Worthy of the strongest evil dragon. But anyway. The newcomer would bow slightly, and. My name is Balth, and I am a pure artificial demon. And today you, DXD, will fall and perish so that my lord can achieve his dream. The birth of a new perfect and grateful world. The brave saints were very confused by what that demon said, but. Just by seeing the intimidating aura that Balth began to give off, the brave saints understood that this guy is someone out of their league. However. Interesting. Crom Cru smiled defiantly at the pressure that demon released. It seemed that it was at his level or close to his. You are not a common pure demon. That power is that of someone at the level of a transcendental. With just his words, now the brave saints felt a good fear of that demon. And if someone like Crom Cru says that, even if excited, it means he means it. Since I was born, I am ridiculously powerful. According to Razavum Sama, I am a super demon or a transcendental, like Surzich's Gremory and Ajuka Asterith. Balth said, raising his shoulders a little without importance. Okay, this guy is a monster. Lind was in a cold sweat and was tense at this. She may be many things, but she is also not a daredevil who would just jump into a fight against a very powerful being who, perhaps, is in the world top 10. If you. Crom Cru chuckled, with a disturbing black-yellow aura surrounding him. Snotty angels, go somewhere else and wipe out what's left of these things. I'll take care of this guy. We do not doubt his strength and power, Crom Cru-san. So it's okay. Dulio would stop by to see the rest of the brave saints. Let's go somewhere else, put an end to these things, and try to meet with Metatron Sama. Understood, all the brave saints affirmed and nodded, beginning their march to leave. Give the demon what he deserves, Crom Cru Sandezu Lin gave her a thumbs up, wishing her luck, and she flies off with the rest. But that, both opponents, demon and dragon, were alone in that part of the field. With no one in the distance and with the sound of battle taking place in the distance. Well. Crom Cru cracked his fists, and his arms were filled with black scales, and 2 horns appeared on his head. For me, fists speak louder than words. Heh. Same here. Balth smiled defiantly and without malice as he enveloped himself in the terrifying demonic aura of him. Simply seeing each other, within seconds, both opponents attacked the other at high speed with their fists raised, which hit the other's face. The blow creates a sharp crushing sound throughout the place where both of them were. Both opponents recoiled from the powerful impact of his fists on their faces and even bled from their noses, having amused smiles at it. But even with that, Crom Cru and Balth returned to the attack against each other, beginning to hit each other without quarter. Balth could feel that Crom Cru's blows were crushing and full of spirit, even he felt how his body trembled. For said blows. And Crom Cru thought the same about Balth's blows. They both have overwhelming physical strength. Balth accumulates a large amount of dense and dark glowing demonic aura in his fist and hits Crom Cru, who took said blow to his face, breaking one of his horns and drawing blood from his chest. Head. But he still smiled at it, this was fun. So, with that, Crom Cru began to increase the density of his blows that hit Balth mercilessly, and the latter did the same. It was a simple give and take street fight. The one who lasts longer and attacks more will win. Balth continues to strike with full force and ferocity as Crom Cru's blows also hit him. His face was bleeding and his eye was slightly swollen, and he was breathing a little. Balth knows very well that he does not have a clear fighting style, since it is not normal for demons to fight hand to hand. Demons only focus on magic attacks above all else. But his case was different, even though he had an absurd demon power, he doesn't have any special characteristics or powers like Gressel and Celian. And not having more time to train, this is his best weapon, melee. As he continued to hit his opponent, Crom Cru could see something in that demon. Not only are his blows full of spirit and will despite not having a clear combat style, but he could also see in his eyes that he was fighting for a motivation. Something motivated him to do this, despite not possessing pure evil. Interesting. Balth delivered a strong blow to Crom Cru's face, making him stagger a little, but quickly, the evil dragon regained its stance and hit Balth's face, who lost consciousness for a moment, but another blow from Crom Cru moved his brain, causing him to regain consciousness instantly and continue attacking fiercely. Balth takes a couple of steps back and I charge a dense dark bright demonic blast into his hand. And then, he screamed and hit the evil dragon hard, with his blast exploding upon impact. Crom Cru spat blood at it and had his clothing torn on his chest and torso and had wounds with little blood. But still, he smiled at it. He hasn't felt pain in a fight in years. All of his opponents so far have been weaklings without wanting to insult or belittle his now teammates, and this is the first time in years that he has fought like this. Very good. With his aura and fire so dense that this blow hit Balth in the chest, causing him to die and vomit a mouthful of blood. He felt as if that blow had taken all the air out of him for a moment, he even felt his heart beating very alarmed. So, in pain and holding the hit place, Balth backed away slowly while he finished spitting out blood. His body was shaking seriously and his legs seemed to be weak, but, and no way I can still go on. Refusing to fall, Balth stood firm again. And an intimidating demonic aura began to emanate from his body, and then she extended her arms in front of her and joined his hands, beginning to channel and concentrate a large amount of demonic energy. This is the single most powerful attack I have. That's a bit similar to what Ice does, but anyway. Crom Cru would smile at that, accepting the challenge. I will answer you as I should. The evil dragon stood in a certain pose while he crossed his arms in X in front of him and began to emanate a black-yellow aura more dense and intimidating than before, and then would release a flare. Both opponents, demon and dragon, charged up their magical attacks to such a high level that the aura they gave off created lightning bolts that split the earth and cracked it. And when both of them charged their attacks to their respective maximum, the great torrent of demonic energy and the concentrated and dense flame, they went to meet the enemy, destroying even the ground without touching it. The impact was immediate and a gigantic explosion was created in the place that was heard and seen in the distance. This clash of powers is not normal at all. When the smoke from the explosion cleared, Crom Cru was first seen, who was panting seriously like never before, but smiling happily and contentedly. He even admits that for a moment, he almost released 100% of himself, but he restrained himself as best he could, despite having gone serious with that attack, since in front of him, a Balth appeared who was panting with great regret, his body and hands were shaking seriously, blood was coming out of his nose, one eye and his mouth. And as if understanding his state, without further ado, he fell to the ground. Face, apparently defeated. Crom Cru sighed at that and walked slowly towards Balth. And when he was right in front of him, kill me. Balth said that as best he could, moving his head, still on the ground, to see the evil dragon in front of him. You are within your rights. It's not worth killing you. Not after seeing how you fought with great spirit and will, following what you believe is right. And I respect that. Said Crom Cru. I don't deserve that respect. Cough. Balth coughed up a little blood, even on the ground. Why does an evil dragon like you, who should be pure evil, fight for a world like this? What's special about it? And why do you want to destroy it? Do you long for senseless destruction? Crom Cru asked, bowing his head. No. I don't long for destruction, but sometimes that is necessary in order to create a new world, a better and more just one. Balth would look at his fist. Although I don't understand any of that, it seems necessary. They have given me the knowledge of this world. How cruel and horrible it is, how those who don't deserve it suffer, how those who are in power they don't care about the rest and only themselves. How those who are different are discriminated against. Although I don't know what all that feels like, since I didn't experience it and I didn't see it either, I feel that. That's wrong. I know, and you're right. Crom Cru nodded. But there are also people who fight to change the world for the better. Crom Cru would then look towards the sky, at nothing. In the past, for years I was controlled by the god Balor, who used me for his purposes. But when he was killed by the god La, I was free. And with that, I was able to see the world, and I liked what I saw. Crom Cru spoke the truth, and the devil knew it. There were more things than I thought before. Seeing the world helped me in my training, it helped me get stronger little by little. To overcome the limit that I thought I had. Crom Cru closed his fists, showing his joy. I wandered between the human world and the underworld for a long time. I found Christianity to be a nuisance. They talked about messages full of love and peace, when they only killed to gain power. That's one of the reasons I also fought with several of them. There are things that even I, an evil dragon, wouldn't do. Like which ones? asked Balth. Kill indiscriminately. The demon was speechless at what Crom Cru said. He did not expect that. I may love fights, but I don't kill outside of them unless it's a necessity. Therefore, I detest those of the church and his organization. Crom Cru would put his hands in his coat pockets. Don't think wrong, I didn't join clippath before because of my contempt for the biblicals. I did it because it helped me on the path I decided, but then I found something better and decided not to help them in their ambition to destroy this interesting world, which is entering an era of absolute change. Even on the ground, Balth would turn his head to see the creatures from both sides fighting each other. Is it really is this world worth fighting for and seeing true change without destruction? For it, only you can find that answer. Crom Cru would turn around, ready to leave. Actions speak louder than words. If you are interested, he looks at how all these DXD people, who are from different sides, are cooperating for a mutual thought. People like them, who are from sides that used to kill each other in the past, are cooperating with each other and fighting side by side for the future they believe in. What will you do? But that said, the evil dragon left the place flying with its wings, leaving a Balth on the ground who began to get up trembling seriously. His body still hurts, but those words that I told him, Crom Cru, were the words of someone who has been in the world since its beginnings and has seen it change throughout his life. And right now, what was the right thing to do? His Lord's ambition or DXD's mutual ideal? He doesn't know it, but something told him that perhaps he would soon receive the answer from him. Better see how everything develops, and depending on what happens, he will make a decision. In another part of the field, Cao Cao and his companions continued fighting these things without much problem, but the problem is that they keep coming. No matter how many they killed, these things revived due to the Saint Grail over time when there were too many dead. Whatever Razavam and Rizavam are planning with Issei, Valery and Asia, they are still keeping the rest busy with these infinite minions. Aorg would make several movements with his hands in order to summon a large amount of mist from the longinus of him, enveloping a large part of these creatures with it and making them disappear from the place. The wizard was not tired. In fact, for him, he would not mind being like this for hours, but time is something they do not have in their favor. 666 can wake up at any time, and I hope the celestial couple are well. Cao Cao, for his part, launched a powerful golden blast from the tip of his spear and said blast destroyed many of those creatures, leaving a path of destruction to finally create a great explosion that affected more of those things in the distance. This seems practical, and it was then that the human noticed something unusual in the distance. He could see how Leonardo's creatures, which were red for a change, were destroyed and even sent flying. The same was true for Gasper's creatures of darkness, which were dissipating like dust. Whatever was happening, he could feel a very powerful energy and presence in that direction. It would be problematic for even them to lose their creatures, since both children have their limits, so take care of things here for the moment. I'll go take care of a big fish, Cao Cao shouted and warned his companions, who heard him and understood. Gay Organ Company stated and nodded, beginning to raise the intensity a little. If clippath had high-quality fighters on the field, it was better to get rid of them as soon as possible. With this, Cao Cao decided to go to the place where he felt that powerful presence, which he could identify as a demon, and a ridiculously powerful one. He used his spear, which expanded to lift him off the ground and give him a great boost to reach as soon as possible to that place, before his prey escapes. Once he arrived at said part of the field, Cao Cao saw something very intriguing. A very beautiful woman with long green hair was beating, crushing and destroying Gasper and Leonardo's creatures without problems. It didn't matter if those things attacked her from behind her, the woman seemed to have good instincts and reflexes, managing to avoid surprise attacks and instantly finishing off her enemies. Thinking that he should avoid casualties as soon as possible, Cao Cao launched a golden blast from the tip of his spear towards that woman. The green-haired woman, sensing the threat of that divine blast, quickly turned on her axis in the air, narrowly avoiding that blast that hit in the distance, and the woman saw her attacker. Just like the creatures noticed the human. Disperse and help the rest. I will take care of this woman. As leader says, this woman was very problematic. Both children spoke through their monsters and then made them retreat from the place, leaving the human and the demon in that part of the battlefield. Through longinus, the green-haired girl, with her eyes half closed and in a cold sweat, saw that spear that gave her goosebumps. They said that possibly the possessor of said longinus would come and that we should avoid fighting him at all costs. That's you without a doubt. It is an honor that you know about me, Miss Demon. Cao Cao placed his spear on his shoulder with complete calm, without seeming intimidated or insecure. And from the density of your aura, I can roughly estimate how strong you are. But that won't be a problem for me. And it's quite obvious that I can't retreat because you won't allow it, right? The human shrugged at the green-haired girl's words, who sighed reluctantly. It seems that my time has come, what a short life. But I still can't back down from this. The woman would put herself on guard, starting to emanate the terrifying omnipotent demonic aura from her that even cracked the ground. Let me introduce myself, my name is Varin. And I am a pure artificially created demon. And in terms of power, I am a super demon or a transcendental being, whatever you want. A super demon? Cao Cao was undoubtedly surprised by what he heard, and seeing that aura on her showed that he was not lying. In that case, I will defeat you as soon as possible. I'm known as someone who always goes undefeated in battles, and only one person has been able to land a hit on me. Issei, huh? Varin's half-laugh indicated that she knew everything. I admit that in my early days, when she was still childish, she wanted to fight him. But now it's different. The woman would raise her right hand, gathering and accumulating demonic energy, along with a whitish one. That was. I may not have a special ability like those two, but I learned one of my own. By Razavum Sama and the new world I will finish you. Demonic light, huh? Cao Cao smiled sarcastically at that. It seems like this will be something entertaining. Very good balance breaker. With that, the large halo of golden light appeared on the human's back, and the blade of his spear turned golden in color. His improved version of the balance breaker, Heavenly Divinity Longinus Goddamring. The redeemed divine ring spear of hope, which although it still has the abilities of the previous one, does not need to summon the orbs, and can still be improved and added more abilities. A proof of his change of ideas and redemption. So shall we begin, Varin-san? The green-haired girl spread her demon wings and took flight into the air. Cao Cao follows her without problems, thanks to her flying ability and balance breaker. Varin carried a huge sphere of demonic light, about the size of a person, and threw it at Cao Cao, who counterattacked with a powerful golden divine blast. The two light attacks with different essences when they hit each other seemed to repel each other. As if they were natural enemies. Is it because of the divine nature of one and the demonic nature of the other? It doesn't matter. A golden orb would appear in front of Cao Cao, and said orb would shine within seconds. And when said brightness dissipated, a being was seen that was a little over 2 meters tall, whose appearance was a golden armor with a pair of golden angel wings, made of the metal of the armor. This is one of the few new skills that Cao Cao has developed. Without telling him anything, the entity invoked created by Cao Cao attacked Varin, who created orbs of demonic light in her hands, launching them against that entity. The entity dodged those enemy blasts without so many problems and destroyed some others with his fists, and in that, Cao Cao's entity would be surrounded by a whitish light, thus disappearing from its place. Varin didn't know what to think about it, but when she noticed her, that entity had reappeared at her side, giving the demon a good blow to the right side of her face, making her retreat. A little and ooh, that hurts. Varin complained about that blow, while rubbing the bruised place and tearing up a little. How immature. Well, obviously yes. Cao Cao would call the demon's attention. That being has divine power with it. Even a Mao-class demon would not survive in a fight against this being if not careful, and destroying it is complicated, but not impossible. And anyway I can rebuild it if that happens. Don't make fun. Somewhat indignant, Varin with her aura created multiple bursts of demonic light around her. With this, the enemy blasts went against Cao Cao, who began to dodge or repel those blasts, as did his entity that was still next to him. And when the green-haired girl's attack stopped for a moment, several golden blades the size of common swords appeared next to Cao Cao after using another of his new abilities. With that, the golden blades began to fire small, but fast and powerful divine golden blasts against Varin. The woman covered herself with a defensive circle, which even fired her blasts of demonic light, causing the blasts of both to hit each other on some occasions, rejecting them without further ado, as if they did not want to come together. However, Varin's circle received many of the divine blasts, causing it to break shortly after, and these blasts hit Varin squarely, making her agonize from the pain of said attacks, while smoke came out of her body. When the gust stopped, Varin panted with regret for what had happened before. She felt her body burning horribly. Not even Razavum's demonic light gave her such pain during her training. Phew. It's just as I thought. Cao Cao sighed, somewhat disappointed at this. Even if his opponent is a transcendental being, who is undoubtedly in the world top 10, he is still a demon. And regardless of that great level of power, multiple powerful holy or divine attacks can defeat a super demon over time. Even Michael Dono and his brothers together could beat you with time, some effort and some good strategy and coordination. At that, Cao Cao would feel a pulse coming from the spear of him. It seems that the will of Elohim discovered something, and the human understood very well what it meant. It is worth trying, since you can also see that this woman, Varin, is not evil. She only fights for what she believes is what right, and it would be a shame if his life were lost and wasted for empty ambition, so I apologize for this. Cao Cao would make his golden blades and entities disappear. But I must incapacitate you. Varin would grind her teeth, and Guai. That scream was accompanied by her aura of demonic light increasing in a big way, making the place where they were standing and the ground tremble. Crack. And then. You'll see. Multiple orbs of demonic light appeared around her, and. This ends Harry. But this, all the orbs of demonic light were like a rain against Cao Cao, who quickly with his spear, created a golden dome barrier around him, which protected him from those attacks without problems, and if the barrier cracked, he would simply it added more power and restored it. Varin, upon noticing that, clicked her tongue, and without a choice. She stopped her attacks, and then extended her arms to her sides, while she accumulated a large amount of demonic light in her hands. Seeing this, Cao Cao knew that it was her chance, but he would let her finish preparing her attack. Besides, she had something to say. You know. For some strange reason, the green-haired girl, still carrying her attack, paid attention to Cao Cao. I used to be like you. Someone who had a great ideal and was willing to fulfill it, no matter the means, what I had to do or who I had to sacrifice. Thinking that so much sacrifice and suffering would be worth it if with this I achieved my ideal. Cao Cao would laugh at the irony. Heh. Ironic, right? Everything I did before was because, on the one hand I sought to quench my thirst for struggle, and on the other, to respond to the prayers of those followers who felt used by the supernatural, and of those whose lives were ruined by them, but, in the end, I had to being defeated to understand that we, humans, are no different from those beings who, according to me before, use us. What is a hero? What is right and what is wrong? Varin didn't know what to say to what Cao Cao said, she continued talking. Why was I born with this spear? The human would look at the true longinus. When I knew that I had the most powerful weapon of all in my hands, I thought that the world had chosen me, that this was my story, and that everything I did was right, but. It wasn't like that. Cao Cao would sigh. But what matters now. Is that I decide to fight for what is truly right. I like this life and what I get, and I have a rival that I seriously want to beat. Thus. At his words, the true longinus began to shine brightly like never before. I will fight for this world. Cao Cao would point his spear towards the demon, while concentrating a large amount of divine light at the tip of his spear. With that frustrating shout, Varin would launch her already charged attack at her opponent. Din Shang of Shego Cao Cao would also launch his attack from the tip of his spear. The torrent of demonic light and the torrent of divine light went to meet the enemy. The impact between both attacks created a gigantic explosion that was felt in the distance, as the entire field even seriously shook for a moment. When the smoke from the explosion dissipated, Cao Cao was seen sighing a little because of what had happened before. That attack is the most powerful he has ever made in his life. Heh, he admits it. That is the feeling and determination to fight for what is truly right. If so, it feels good. On the other hand, from the smokescreen would appear Varin, who was panting with great regret, her body was shaking seriously, and there were 2 lines of blood on the sides of her mouth. It seems that the explosion affected him, since Cao Cao covered himself with his barrier before the explosion. It's over. Cao Cao would shrug his shoulders and create a golden orb next to him. And with that, said orb would disappear and reappear right in front of Varin, who was shocked by it, and the explosion that occurred as a result of that orb was very strong. Only for seconds to see how Varin simply fell to the ground with smoke coming out of his body. Cao Cao, upon seeing this, only descended a little, still flying over the green-haired girl, who he saw reassigned to the human, ready to accept his fate, but, illumination. With that simple word that Cao Cao said, the true longinus emanated a grayish light, and an aura of said color went towards the demon, enveloping her and leaving her intrigued, even surprised, since. Only you can find the answer to what is truly right. And depending on what you choose, I will understand and not judge you. We both choose our path and ideal to follow, but there is always time for a change of ideas. But that said, Cao Cao would disappear from the place in a trail of light, leaving Varin alone and very thoughtful in that place. Varin did not understand it, now she was beginning to question many things. That light that enveloped her showed her something. Change, forgiveness. It even showed her the ideals of Elohim, everything she believed in and so on. What should you do now? Is her lord the one who is wrong and DXD is right, or vice versa? She doesn't know, but she better see how everything plays out in this battle. And maybe then she'll get the answer from her. In another part of the field, the battle continued and continued. The Gremory group without Roswis and Gasper along with Irina, Venelana, Razor, Sona, Tsubaki, Saji, Sikvera and Alavan fought frantically against these demonic creatures that are worse than cockroaches or the plague. Some had scratches that bled a little, but the most complete were Venelana, Razor, Saji and Alavan, who were the tanks of the group. If they managed to stay alive despite the fact that these things come without mercy, it is thanks to their teamwork. But this time. It seems the clippath wants to put quantity over quality. Some of those creatures that looked like wolves jumped to tear and bite Rias, Sona and Venelana, but the attack and intervention of Kiba, Zenobia and Arena finished off those canines whose heads or bodies were cut in half. Jew. If we get out of this alive, I'll take a big retirement. Venelana's side reassigned as she grabbed one of those annoying birds which tried to attack her from her neck. And with just a bit of her aura, she turned it into dust. Although I'm glad to know I haven't lost my touch. I haven't set foot on a battlefield again since the Civil War. Are you serious? Rias raised an eyebrow in irony at what her mother said. She notices that she is as carefree as her brother when it comes to fighting, and she will only get serious if the situation warrants it. Well, it doesn't matter. Suddenly, Kaneko would feel his ears twitching in alarm and she would feel something unusual. That was. Careful. At the scream of the Nekashu, everyone jumped from their place to the side after the albino did it first. Only to see how a large snake made of water impacted the place where they were before. But what the hell? PCH. They are more skilled than I thought. When that female voice was heard, everyone would see how someone, a woman, was flying in the air with a pair of demon wings. And some were speechless when they saw who she was. It was not possible. How long? Serzich's little sister. Hey Kateria Leviathan. Rias confirmed the identity of the newcomer, surprising those who had never seen her. Although some already imagined how it was possible that she is here and she is the only one. With that other voice, 2 more people would be present before the young demons. Shalba Beelzebub and Crucery Asmodeus. Venelana confirmed the identity of the other 2. What a committee that appears to you. Although we already imagine how he is the one who is here. My serious question is. Are they willing to face us? Don't eat cravings, woman. Shalba would look at her with contempt. We are the blood descendants of the mass, we would never lose or flee from usurpers. It is obvious that they have not learned anything, not even in death. Sona adjusted her glasses without being worried about those in front of her. It doesn't matter if they are descendants of the original mass, if they don't have the charisma and great power, they are worse than trash. Damned, I'll make you swallow your words. Angry, Kateria would make her water snake attack her enemies, and before any of the youths could do anything. That snake would dissipate like fog out of nowhere, but what? Ascends here. At that voice, everyone would see how someone they knew walked towards the place. A young, handsome man with ash-colored hair and grey eyes. Hauser Sama. Rias was surprised like never before to see the champion in the place. Like the rest, is he a reinforcement or? TCH. Damn, are you going to betray us? What Crucery said left the young demon speechless. Was the champion a traitor to the alliance? Rather, I would say that I have reflected. Hauser would sigh complicatedly. If my cousin saw me now and what I have done, what would she think of me? Heh. I can already imagine what she would do. Hauser would laugh sadly at the irony and this is not the time to cling to the past. But those words, Emperor Belial would begin to emanate a powerful demonic aura from his body. The pressure he emanated was such that everyone felt intimidated. It's over for you, old mass. Hauser would extend his hand and the reddish aura from him traveled at high speed, enveloping the 3 old mass. They lost. Lose. Shalba felt offended and angry at the contempt. Don't make fun. The descendant extended his hand to launch an attack, but nothing. He couldn't channel his aura or concentrated but what? My powers. Kateria looked at herself without understanding why she couldn't channel her demonic aura, she didn't even feel it. And she saw the obvious culprit. What did you do, you bastard? Simple, I have cancelled his powers. What Hauser said surprised everyone. Worthless. It is the sole and main power of my clan. It allows me to override the abilities of people and items as long as I understand their properties. It is thanks to this power that I am in first place in the ranking in the rating games and for which I am held in great esteem by the current mass themselves. And in your case, cancel, or rather, seal your powers. So. Excuse my boldness. Without warning and not caring about surprising the majority. Hauser launched 2 powerful and small concentrated rays of demonic energy from 2 of his fingers. And these rays hit Shalba and Crucery right in the chest, the heart. With vomiting mouthfuls of blood, Shalba and Crucery simply fell to the ground and did not get up again or move a muscle. They died. Kaneko confirmed to everyone what happened, leaving her companions and others speechless. It seems that only you are left. Hauser would set his sights on Kateria, who looked with real fear at the murderer of her compatriots. Do you still think you are invincible after what I did to you and how I killed your 2 companions in one fell swoop? Flicker. Why you wouldn't say that? If she could use my power. Kateria was never going to admit it out loud, even if her life was in danger, but she knows she doesn't stand a chance. Against this monster. Aria, so is that so? With an ironic laugh, Venelana would stand next to the Emperor. Hauser-kun, could you deactivate your power over Kateria-chan? I wish to give you a taste of the vast difference in her powers. As you say, Venelana-sama. Hauser would snap his fingers at him and… Kateria would feel the power flowing out of her again and she smiled wickedly. Ufufufu, do you think you can do something against me? Area, I should ask that. Venelana put her hand on her chin while she takes flight with her wings and gets at the height of the Leviathan. If you can defeat me, maybe you can defeat Seraphil. That's a pretty obvious fact. Kateria accumulated a large amount of blackish water in her hand and this would take the shape of large snakes, which were against the chestnut bale, but before they touched it, said snakes evaporated as if nothing had happened. How did? What's happening? Aren't you going to defeat me and prove that you are worthy of being the descendant of Leviathan? Venelana asked mockingly and with her destructive red-black aura surrounding her. Don't make fun. Angry, Kateria created and launched more blackish water snakes, manipulating them to attack the chestnut from several sides, but the result was the same, her snakes disintegrated before touching her. Wow, you are a very stubborn girl. And maybe there is no point in forgiving you and giving you mercy. Venelana would sigh and put on an expressionless face. Beings like you do not deserve to be in this present day and you do not deserve your last name or title. When she said that, she began to slowly approach towards her opponent. Kateria would constantly release more blackish water snakes. All that her power allowed, but nothing. Her attacks evaporated just by touching Venelana's aura, who was getting closer and closer to her descendant, who began to get desperate. Get away, get out of me. The descendant began to gather all of her blackish water power for a single powerful attack. And when she had it ready, Kateria launched her attack, which was a gigantic blackish water snake with a great and powerful aura, but like everything before, said attack evaporated just by coming into contact with Venelana's aura, this time taking a little longer to evaporate. Because, simple. As if nothing had happened, Venelana was already in front of Kateria, who saw the Bale woman with real fear. Your power alone is pathetic. Maybe you were a threat before during the meeting of the three sides, but that was because you only used a power that wasn't yours and you're supposed to be the proud descendant of Leviathan. Not even on your own and with your own power are you a big deal. And my daughter and her friends are supposed to be pathetic for you for lowering themselves to training when you do the same. You lowered yourself and begged for a power that wasn't yours and look how it all ended before, you failed, you died. And even if you're back, it's still the same. You failed, you lost. You're pathetically weak, Kateria-chan. Nowadays. No, even in the past, it's the same. Nobody is born powerful at the beginning, you have to work hard to obtain on your own the power that will allow you to demonstrate what you believe in. Venelana would raise her hand, pointing a finger at the descendant's forehead. Maybe you'll have better luck in another life. When she said that, instantly, a large orb made of Hakai no Chikara appeared, having Kateria inside it. And the descendant began to disintegrate within that destructive orb, but she did not scream, nor did she agonize or curse Venelana. And by her expression, she accepted her fate. And when the attack ended, there was no trace of Kateria Leviathan's body. Venelana sighed, somewhat sorry for what she did, but it was still necessary. And she would turn to see the champion. Hauser-kun, what does it mean that you are a traitor? Emperor Belial sighed, reassigned, knowing that he had to confess everything he did and he was prepared for whatever they yelled at, criticized, and hit in the face. He deserved it. At his base, Razavam saw everything that happened with his three compatriots whom he did not support when they founded the old mass faction of the Cows Brigade. How pathetic they are. He didn't even expect much from those three useless ones, he knew that sooner or later they would die pathetically again. So confident and proud of being descendants of Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus respectively, that they couldn't see past the difference in powers. The way of being and acting of those three demonstrated his point about how disappointing their race is, but at the same time it gave him that feeling that if they had supported Serzich's side in the civil war, the three of them, perhaps, they would have a different destiny and… No, he shouldn't have thought about that. Those idiots asked for it, and anyway. They deserve death. Because of Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus, the grandparents of those three, his grandfather died fighting to protect his people, and death is the best thing for the descendants of those three despicable mass. Anyway. I use the Saint Grail and invoke the souls of those three, and I send them to 666 to wake it up at the right time. Just one more. One more soul and he will awaken that beast. And he will be in charge of claiming and giving said soul. And it was already obvious whose he would be. Chapter 49 Team DXD vs clippath. Confrontations and awakening. The battle on the field where the forces of DXD and clippath were fighting each other continued, and that was something that was truly exhausting many, since no matter how many they killed, these things were revived thanks to the Saint Grail when there were many dead. This was more of a battle of resistance, and that was bad against this unlimited army. They have been fighting for about half an hour since they arrived, and everyone felt like they had been fighting for hours. This is taking forever. And right now, in a certain part of the field, Arthur, Biku, Kuroka, Lefei, Elaine, Sha and Zhu were fighting against a very dangerous and troublesome enemy, a gigantic black scale male about 8 meters high. And boy was it problematic. Arthur and Elaine were repelled by the scale male's attack, which instantly caused several things to appear on his back and arms, cannons with 3 nozzles and 4 machine guns. Okay, that's something they didn't expect and seeing how that scale male started shooting at them with its relentless arsenal, it made everyone take evasive action. Biku was flying on his cloud to attack the scale male, which was trying to hit that fly with its weapons. It seems the clippath excelled in creating that thing, and more because everyone noticed that with the passage of time, that thing seemed to become stronger, faster and more resistant, since full boost that command came from that scale male, and the aura that thing emanated was one of care. He is taking advantage of the power of the Securitate very well, since by not having a host or an organic body, it seemed like he could increase his power unlimitedly, without consequences and okay, that would be even crazier and more abnormal, but that doesn't mean it's not a possibility. Elaine with her holy spear launched several powerful holy blasts to damage that thing, but it did not fall. Even if they managed to hurt it, that thing would regenerate within seconds. The spear that the Maid of Pendragon carried in her hand is one of the great treasures of the Pendragon family, belonging to King Arthur in ancient times. Ringomiant, the sacred spear at the same level as Caliburn that King Arthur used to pierce the armor of his bastard son, Mordred, in a single blow. But back to the fight. A large sphere of concentrated fire hit the great scale male in the face, who saw that Zhu was responsible for it. Better kill him and it was then that, suddenly, some gigantic hands made of water appeared and grabbed the great scale male. These water hands then lifted that thing and threw it with force to the side, crashing it against some rubble. See how the water hands dissolve and bliss water is placed next to little Sha, indicating that she did that. The black scale male would rise from where it was thrown, being rebuilt, and before it could attack, Arthur attacked it with several cuts on its chest, leaving deep cracks and just then, a golden spear, Ringomiant, wrapped in its golden sacred aura, impacted the damaged chest of that being, passing through it and leaving a large hole. Elaine with her raised hand and a mental command would make Ringomiant return to her hands while she saw the state of that scale male. And seeing how that thing rebuilt the destroyed place made them see that they must destroy it completely, or at least let's find and destroy its core or whatever makes this thing keep fighting. I hope the others are better than us. Lefei looked around for a few moments, being somewhat or very worried about the rest. For some time now they felt several powerful presences, as if at the level of a god, in the distance. But at least Kuroka confirmed who they were and what they were facing. Sererg, Cao Cao and Crom Cru must have faced ridiculous opponents that made them go serious and pushed their limits respectively. Hopefully you don't have some of those worries at the moment. Ice. Valery. Kuroka looked for a few moments at where Grease was, hoping that the two of them and the former nun were okay. He has a bad feeling. In another part of the field, Graia, Bariel and Metatron had gotten rid of most of those things that went against them. Each one individually was ridiculously strong, they rarely relied on each other in combat, but they still kept it in mind not to wear themselves out. This wasn't a real battle, not yet. They obviously also felt those very powerful presences, some at the level of a god class or more. They did not identify them very well, since these fights ended very quickly, in less than 5 minutes. Just when Graia was going to ask the ship for information through a communication circle. Suddenly, a large silver blast and a golden spear went against them. The three of them dodged those attacks that destroyed the place where they were before, and many years have passed. To that masculine and familiar voice, which Graia recognized. His little brother, Euklid, appeared from the smokescreen created. Sister. The Euklid. Graia felt his eyes moisten for a moment at the sight, but she shook her head and dismissed his emotions. You are truly alive. More alive than ever. Euklid raised his arms a little in grace and mockery. And obviously, I didn't come alone. How long, Bariel? Next to the demon, a certain person appeared that the strongest cadre never believed he would see again. The Cabial. Bariel could barely believe what he saw, but it was true, he was in front of him. Did they free you from Cocytus? That's already obvious. Cabial responded with mockery and sarcasm. And I really like the idea that demon had. This war is worth it, he said that, wrapping himself in his impure sacred aura and unfolding a single pair of Fallen's wings, which were as big as he was. By the way, it seems that his children will have some problems. Euklid looked into the distance, and the three of them understood what he meant. What do they say? Do two of us fight against one of them or? Metatron, go with the brave saints. Bariel interrupted the words of his and Seraphine's brother. We will take care of these two. Don't worry, we'll catch up with you later. You've always been like this, even when you were in heaven. Metatron would shrug reassign. Good luck to you both. The maid and the cadre nodded to what the seraph said, who flew from the place to where the brave saints were. Are you ready? Cabial looked anxious. Because I'm dying to win to start and even kill. Keep your words, Cabial. Barakiel's tone had a very calm and disturbing anger. Get ready. At that statement, the atmosphere became completely cold. The Lucifuge brothers looked at each other without saying anything, but the tension between them was clear. One was anxious and the other a little tense, but determined. And the two Grigori cadres let out a dangerous aura. Without saying anything, the two combatants on each side quickly launched themselves to face their respective opponent. Both Barakiel and Cabial crossed their fists against each other. Many would expect that the difference in power between the two would make a difference, but that would not be the case now. A loud roar shook the atmosphere. The power of that clash of fists resonated in the distance. The pressure of that clash shook the area where they were. After the first meeting, they both separated and distanced themselves. Cabial waved his hand, and it felt numb, an action that Barakiel imitated on his side. Cabial smiled, amused and malicious when he saw that it was worth training since came out, and Euklid's crazy experiments helped a lot. He never felt as strong before as he does now. Instantly, Cabial made a large number of spears of light appear suspended in the air. And as if it were a mirror, Barakiel performed the same action. With a silent order, those weapons shot out in search of damage. On the contrary, a sound similar to breaking glass was heard as the result of the collision between the spears of light. Same speed, same power and same resistance. It was what both cadres demonstrated with that chaotic war spectacle. In an instant, the sky was once again plagued with spears of light, all ready to repeat the action again. Wow, I never imagined being able to do this. Barakiel Cabial happily admired the chaos that was being generated. This is bucking fun. Funny. Barakiel got quite angry at what he heard. Where do you get that idea? Don't you understand what you're doing by helping these idiots? The holy lightning of God gave more strength to his attacks. Millions can die if that beast awakens, and you're just having fun. Oh come on. Barakiel Cabial responded to the fierce rain of spears of light that were approaching him. You don't know how long I waited for something like this. Cabial summoned two swords of light in his hands and, without stopping launching his attacks, he recklessly entered into the rain of projectiles that collided with each other. Barakiel was taken by surprise by that unexpected movement, using his own swords of light. Received the onslaught of his opponent. The force Cabial exerted was enough to drag Barakiel to the ground, but he did not stop there. He continued to exert enough force so that the strongest cadre was forced to take flight, separating himself from his attacker. Cabial watched smiling as Barakiel carried out the actions he desired. And with an arrogant laugh he rushed to strike his enemy's torso with his sword. Barakiel closely followed his brother's attack and prepared to defend himself perfectly. The swords of both cadres and brothers met fiercely, and despite the strength exerted by Cabial, he was unable to move Barakiel an inch from his place, who instantly attacked Cabial with his free arm, who was pushed away by the huge difference in forces. Enough. Cabial. Barakiel looked at him with fury in his eyes. Look at the difference there is between us. I know, brother. Cabial was euphoric. I have no doubt that this is a real fight. Surprised by the hypocrisy in the words of his former brother, Barakiel launched himself again to meet him. Cabial received a strong blow from his brother's light weapon, but this time he did not move from his place, greatly surprising his attacker. Without giving him time to recover from the surprise, Cabial began a series of combinations of blows and thrusts, from which Barakiel managed to masterfully defend himself. They both began an aerial waltz. Approaching, turning and receding at a fast and frenetic pace. From time to time the lightsabers of both of them broke into pieces, discarding them on the spot and replacing them instantly. The exchange of blows swords between both cadres and brothers was frenetic, but it did not end there. The spears of light were once again shot by both opponents towards the other, filling the sky of the field as far as could be seen. Flashes of the crashes were visible to the naked eye, silencing the few witnesses who saw the crash in the distance. What seemed to be an easy battle for Barakiel was turning out to be quite complicated. Despite the incredible superiority of the holy lightning of God, Cabial managed to hold him back with his ferocity and his frantic attacks. Barakiel was beginning to feel certain nerves in front of his brother. Cabial, on the other hand, continued with his relentless attacks until Barakiel in front of him tried to move away to a safe distance. A predatory smile adorned Cabial's face, who summoned spears of light behind Barakiel and attempted an ambush. The instinct of the holy lightning of God alerted him to the cowardly attack. Using his weapons he repelled the rain of spears with ease, but a new one came above him. Moving quickly he managed to avoid it. The situation was repeated several times, and in each one Barakiel was forced to retreat. Then his mind began to sense that something was wrong. He knew that although Cabial was strong, he was one of the best cadres still combatants, barely equaling Arm Yourself or Penemu, and being below Azazel. But this. Why is he so strong now? It seems like you realized, huh? Cabial interrupted his attack to chat. You wonder how I'm so strong now, right? His brother's silence was enough of an answer for Cabial. You Let's just say that Euklid brat did a lot of experiments on me that made me stronger, he made me try his creations and other things. Heh, he seems just as crazy and genius as Azazel. But anyway. Shall we level up? Bariel looked at him seriously and doubtfully. Seeing that his brother took out of his hand something similar to a blade with small yellow jewels, is that? It's the same as Euklid Kun's little toy. The fallen one was amazed and alert at what Cabial said. And I had the design made, so. Balance breaker. Those words were accompanied by Cabial being enveloped in a glow of black and yellow light. And as said glow dissipated. Cabial was seen now wearing black scale mail armor with yellow gems, and his only large pair of fallen wings were wrapped in armor parts. Do you think you have a chance, brother? Do you really think that you are the only ones who can play that? Cabial was a little surprised at what Bariel said, and this one from a magic circle would take out a completely black sword, both on the blade and the handle, with purple jewels. Azazel asked for the help of Valery and Issei, giving him some jewels of his sacred gear, and it was not difficult to replicate them, so. Balance breaker with that exclamation, the strongest cadre was enveloped in the black glow purple of the object of it. And when said glow dissipated, Bariel appeared wearing black scale mail armor with purple gems. We decided to come with all the necessary weapons. Amazing, Bariel now. Cabial would put himself on guard, summoning in his hand a sword of the same material as his artificial sacred gear. Let's continue this epic battle. Bariel only sharpened his gaze at what he heard, but he still prepared himself and expelled his fearsome impure sacred aura with lightning. Holding back is not an option now. With this, both cadres and brothers charged at each other at great speed in the air, creating a powerful shock wave. This fight is only going to intensify. Oh. You are just as beautiful or even more beautiful than 500 years ago. Euklid spoke with nostalgia and beauty, while Graia remained silent, watching her little brother with attention in the atmosphere. Both Lucifuge brothers in their previous clash moved away to a certain distance so as not to be included or involved in the fight between the two cadres and brothers of Grigori. How are you? Alive, you ask? Euklid interrupted and completed Graia's question, smiling amused. Oh, sister, you are very naive. Do you really think I'm going to believe that story of yours? You know very well what really happened. The silence and slight trembling of his sister was enough response for Euklid. You had the opportunity to kill me in the civil war, but, well, you remember it very well, right? With her head slightly lowered, Graia bit her lower lip in frustration, causing it to bleed. She remembers it very well no matter how much she tries to deny it. Both of them faced each other at some point in the civil war in the past. Graia had everything to win without a doubt, but in the end, I doubt. She did not have the will to kill her own little brother, her blood family, when he was defenseless and without strength. Retreating of that place where they fought in the past, thinking that someone else would take care of it, but you left me there. Lying. Just like a disposable toy. The expression that Euklid now had demonstrated his mental state, which seemed to border on madness itself. In truth. I was afraid that someone else from Serzich's side would find me and kill me or arrest me, but in the end, Razavam Sama was the one who found me, saved me. He told me that one day I could obtain what I want most, that we will see the dawn of a new world, a perfect and grateful one. And today. It is that day. Euklid would envelop himself in his silver demonic aura, his absolute gear would materialize on his right arm, just as he would summon his absolute sword. And with said sword I point to his sister. Get ready, Nisan. Because you will be part of this new world and we will be together forever. Euklid. If I can't save you. Recovering firmness in his expression, Graia enveloped herself in her silver demonic aura and from a magic circle she takes out a spear. A grayish-silver spear with jewels. At least. I will remedy my mistake. Juju. I see that they have replicated the sacred gears of the Seker Yuete and the Hacker Yuete. Euklid would laugh sarcastically. If it weren't like that, this wouldn't be fun. Balance breaker. Those words from both brothers were accompanied by two different great bright flashes, a black-blue glow for Euklid and a silvery grayish-reddish glow for Graia. And as these glows dissipated, Euklid was first seen with his black scale mail. And soon. Graia would be seen wearing a feminine-style scale mail, silver grayish in color with red gems. Here I come, Euklid. Graia closed the distance between them at high speed. Euklid raised his sword to try to contain the attack. The silver-haired maid tried to hit her brother's ribs with her spear, but Lucifuge's youngest stopped the attack with the edge of his sword. With that, Graia would disappear at high speed as if she had vanished, and at that moment she attacked Euklid's exposed side, who kicked the ground beneath him, creating a reasonable distance between her sister. And without giving her time to react, he launched a silver-black demonic blast towards her. Graia tilted her head a little, avoiding that blast that was going straight to her face, but that distraction was enough for Euklid's sword to enter her personal space. The thrust that was going fast like a golden arrow tried to cut the maid's body. where, showing off her enormous strength and speed, Graia hit the sword with her spear. Euklid felt his body tremble a little due to the simple shock wave after the clash between his weapons. Incredible. And he smiled happily at it under the mask. This reminded him of the past. Graia saw how her spear was deflected after the block and how she lost some balance. Only for Euklid to raise her sword, enveloping it in a dense silver-black aura, ready to slash her with said weapon, and boost, 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 transfer. The accumulated power was transferred to the sword. And with that, Euklid charged at Graia, ready to give her a strong blow with her weapon. Seeing that, Graia raised her left arm, creating a defensive circle, which managed to block the impact of the sword, avoiding the worst, while Graia was sent back to Euklid's certain surprise to see that she blocked her attack. Even so, Graia stopped in her path and charged her power into her hands and launched silver demonic blasts of lightning towards her brother, who repelled them with her sword and/or he dodged when she had to. Not enough with that, Euklid went towards Graia, ready to attack with his sword. But the maid summoned another spear in her other hand and began a quick combat with her brother, who was surprised and happy by her ability to predict the attacks of her weapon and attack when she should. Obviously Euklid summoned another sword in her other hand to be even. Both Lucifuge brothers attacked each other without mercy, and their cut seemed to even cut the air itself. Even when one dodged the other's slasher thrust, a cutting shockwave was created that affected the surroundings. After a fierce crash, both brothers were thrown backwards, taking distance. Hee. I have been training hard for these 500 years for this moment, Ni-san. To show you that I can live up to you. That I no longer have to be under your shadow, and that I am no longer your overprotected little brother which when you always pampered, you only lowered his self-esteem and spirit. Graia remained static at what Euklid said, who seemed angry. Even indignant this time I will receive your recognition, recognize my efforts, Ni-san. Euklid stuck one of his swords into the ground and then 6 large blades appeared around him, and when these blades broke, 6 black scale mails, similar to Euklid's, were seen. Just seeing that, Graia got a little confused. It seemed as if her brother had split into 7 of himself, but seeing how all those scale mails were going against her made her put on her guard. Graia hit the summoned entities without any problem. Her speed and strength gave her a great advantage, but she still shouldn't trust herself. Something about her tells her that her brother is more tactical than he seems, and when she got rid of the last of her encumbrances, Euklid reappeared in front of her and had concentrated such an amount of silver-black demonic aura into her swords that it simply seemed that the physical form of the blades had completely disappeared. Graia raised her spears and charged them in her silver demonic aura, along with wind and fire. The 3 elements combined gave a fearsome repowering. Graia attacked with just one of her spears at the same instant that Euklid attacked with her swords. The clash between her aura-wrapped weapons and her elements made the place where they were standing glow. Quickly, Graia took advantage of the moment to divide, 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 divide. I used the power of the hacker Yuiku in an attempt to weaken her little brother too much and end the fight as soon as possible, but I forget a certain detail. Boost, 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 TCH. Graia clicked her tongue as she forgot that her brother had the power of the Sekiryuite. She has it too, but she doesn't see it as necessary to use it unless it's necessary and Euklid made even more force in the struggle between his weapons, managing to make Graia take 2 steps back. Only to then make a movement that managed to open Graia's guard. It is his opportunity. He attacked with his swords with the intention to seriously injure her, but almost as if nothing had happened, Graia disappeared from her attack range and she reappeared within seconds of her being further away from him. The masterful speed of her is worthy of the strongest queen of them all. But this, Graia wielded a single spear with double tips on the sides and then disappeared at high speed, being followed by Euklid. The fight between both Lucifuge brothers was now only about speed. The maid was forced to max out her speed factor since her brother moves faster than she expected. Graia used her spear to repel Euklid's swords. Immediately, with a movement as she struggled with her brother, Graia caused the lower tip of her spear to stick into the ground, thus Euklid moved away from his sister almost instantly as a pillar of fire emerged from the ground. Cunning, her sister and her good tricks, but still. Euklid quickly took advantage of turning and doing a 360-degree slash, one that raised the ground and cut everything at close range. If it weren't for her reflexes and survival instincts, Graia wouldn't have managed to dodge that. Euklid went towards her sister, ready to attack her, now with only a sword. Graia threw several blades of ice and earth towards her brother, but he repelled and or dodged those attacks with a barrier around her. Seeing how Euklid seemed ready to attack her, Graia raised her spear to block the blow of her brother's weapon. But this time. Euklid had adjusted her movement and speed to generate more pressure in an attempt to penetrate her sister's defense, who seemed to be trying hard to not fall. Euklid was going to take advantage of this. With a total movement of his body, he managed to repel her sister and make her fly to the side. He then went towards her to strike her with her sword, but Graia, kneeling on the ground, raised her spear with both hands to block her brother's attack. The impact and blockage of her made her resent a little, and her arms tremble slightly. She didn't expect that. "Are you making fun of me, Ni-san?" The woman seemed confused by what Euklid said, who sounded dissatisfied. "I know that's not all your strength, I know." In one fierce movement, Euklid would deflect Graia's spear, leaving her with her guard open, and quickly, Euklid grabbed his sister by the neck with his hand and squeezed her to choke her. Graia felt like she was missing the strength, air, and when he wanted to free himself. Cruelly, Euklid slammed his head and body against the ground, cracking the ground. Then he turned, still holding Graia by her neck, and threw her against a nearby rock building. Obviously Euklid didn't flinch or anything when he saw how that rock fell on top of his sister. She is more resistant than that. Releasing her aura, Graia emerged from that grave of rubble and stood on guard, ready to do what she must do. She just needs the perfect opportunity to use it. I hope it appears. In another part of the field. The battle had not diminished in intensity or cruelty. The dragons on Tannen's side are the ones who have it a little worse, because they are the largest number of losses in this intense battle that has only been started for about half an hour, but everyone felt as if they had been fighting for hours. Although, at least, Gaspar and Leonardo's monsters make the losses less, but that still didn't relax anyone. Tannen, Sylvia, Bova, Tiamat, the children of the first and many dragons, fought fiercely against these things that did not stop coming. In truth, they are being the biggest inconvenience. Sylvia with her instincts felt a powerful energy approaching. She tried to locate where she was coming from and when she looked up, she saw a trail of red-black light going towards them and watch out. Tannen's wife could not finish shouting her warning since at high speed, that trail of fast light had tackled Tiamat, taking her away from the place roughly. Tiamat saw Bova and his brothers wanted to go help the Dragon Queen, but suddenly, several gigantic black scale males appeared in front of them. Tiamat complained a little after her captor let go of her, making her crash into the ground and roll around a little on it. Until he was finally able to stand up and time for the final round, Dragon Queen Chan. From that bright trail appeared Nema, who looked anxious and more malicious than she had before. It's obvious that you don't learn. Tiamat would put herself on guard, raising her aura and turning into her dragon humanoid form. Well, let's finish this. Area, and I go and say that I have a new toy. And this time, different from the one she used against those brats. From a magic circle in her hand, Nema would take out a book. A book similar in appearance to a magic one, with a purple cover very dark almost black, also with symbols of Zoroastrianism and with small red jewels. Tome of Diabolism. Balance breaker. But that exclamation, the succubus was enveloped in a dark brilliant glow of a very dark purple color, almost black with red. And when said glow dissipated, Nema was seen wearing armor. A different one from the one already worn before. Since this new dragon armor was very dark purple almost black with red gems and 2 dragon wings. In addition, on each shoulder of the armor there is a small dragon head towards its respective lateral side and it has a tail in the lower and middle part of its back. Do you like this new toy? Asked Nema with confidence and mockery. That aura is. Tiamat opened her eyes almost in shock when she recognized that aura and Ozzy Dahaka. Did you? Yes. Nema stated anxiously. Let's just say that we decided to put those lizards to better use and we ended up creating sacred gears where we sealed them against their will. R. Damn, this is how you thank those who fought for you, Tiamat asked and shouted in extreme rage. Apophis and Ozzy Dahaka were already possible traitors after what Crom Cru did, so let's say that what we did was good. It was clear from her tone that Nema did not regret that decision. And you better not even try to reason with this stupid evil dragon. It was difficult, but we managed to break his soul and so on. Even without him helping me, I can use his power without problems. Tiamat clenched her teeth and fists added. I understand Drake and Albion ending up like this because of what they did, but Apophis and Ozzy Dahaka being used like this. They may have been evil and cruel, but she knew that they had honor and pride like Crom Cru, and that's why. They will pay for it. But that roar, Tiamat launched an attack. He raised his fist, charged it in blue fire and went at Nema. She waited for the attack without moving from her spot and when the Dragon Queen's attack made contact with her. Tiamat saw with surprise that a small and powerful defensive magic circle was in the area where she had launched her attack. Nema at that, he expelled the dragon from his field and she fell to the ground, using her claws to stand firm. Tiamat would return to the attack, creating and launching several bursts of blue fire that were clearly loaded with great power, one that was evident was not very common. Tiamat was training a lot not only in the physical field, but also in the magical field. She is one of the few dragons that have large reserves of magic, but she never took advantage of them or trained until a few months ago, and the magical training with Roswas helped her a lot. She does not spend much energy when attacking, but they do not lose power. Nema covered herself from the attacks with her arms, but was able to feel the force in them. She is dangerous. Nema, although she did not use her knowledge of magic before, she can see that the Dragon Queen is stronger than she was months ago since Romania. She raised her hand, and a strong red lightning bolt fell from a magic circle in the sky and passed near the dragon. Tiamat barely dodged it, but the damage that just her wave did made her retreat a little. Wow, she's taking great advantage of Ozzy Dahaka's forbidden and cursed magic. Still. Tiamat launched several small bluish flaming blasts that hit Nema, who felt that the attacks were not powerful, but they attack in areas where it can be a nuisance. He raised his hand and released a blast of devilish magic that the dragoness saw and countered with her own flaming blast. Both blasts collided, creating an explosion and a screen of smoke that enveloped the place where they were fighting, and in that, Tiamat with her sense of smell, managed to locate her prey, raising her hand wrapped in aura to the direction where the succubus was, and suddenly, Nema would feel like the environment around her and her body were heavier than normal. This was gravity magic. Obviously she didn't have time to be surprised, since Tiamat would appear between the smokescreen in front of her, giving her a strong blow of blue fire in the abdomen, leaving the succubus somewhat disoriented and moaning. Cunning dragon. Immediately, Tiamat delivered another blow. One that Nema blocked with her hand at the last second, then expelled her aura and moved the dragon away from her personal space. Tiamat did a spin in the air as she landed on the ground. And then position itself, inhale a breath of air and launch a fierce, bluish and concentrated flare. Devilish Zero Nema, from a diabolical circle, launched an icy torrent of black. And when their attacks came into contact, the flame froze, becoming a statue of black ice to the dragon's surprise. The ice continued its way to the ground as Tiamat took flight with her wings. The devilish frozen energy continued its way to the ground and turned much of the area where they were into a meadow of black ice. What a power. Tiamat saw that Nema did not seem concerned about what was happening. With this, the Dragon Queen would take out her claws, which extended further than normal, even enveloping them in her blue fire. Time for close-range attack. Nema, upon seeing that, took out her own claws, which lengthened and were wrapped in reddish lightning with a black aura. With that said, both went to attack each other in their respective ways. Nema with her claw launched cutting bursts of reddish lightning that went mercilessly towards the Dragon Queen. Tiamat defended herself against that as best she could, but sometimes those things were too fast, and even with her instinct she has problems. Nehema's attacks were confusing. Some were real, but others were simple illusions, and that is what confuses Tiamat, who when she thinks she is attacking a real one, it turns out to be false, and she is shocked by them. Nema laughed at that and began to physically attack the dragon with her claws. Claws that, although they did not hit their target, did manage to make Tiamat feel firsthand the power he has. It was immense and even terrible. Nema then turned and hit Tiamat with her claws, who covered herself with her arms, but in the end she hit the ground hard, barely landing on her feet. Even with this, Tiamat launched herself into the attack again, and then saw that she attacked an image, not the real one. She turned with surprise and some horror when Tiamat fell to the ground injured with a slight cut on her chest. Nema prepared several bursts of very dark purple fire, almost black, ready to launch them against the Dragon Queen, but seeing how several flames went against her made her launch her bursts against those flames, culminating in an explosion and a screen of smoke after the crash. TCH. Lizards. Nema clicked her tongue in irritation when she saw that some dragons came to help the Dragoness. The only 3 dragons that came together launched a powerful and fierce combined flame. Nema only raised her hand at it, creating a circle of diabolism, from which came a dark icy blizzard, freezing the entire flare of those dragons and causing the black ice to fall to the ground. Nema shook her head at this. How persistent the dragons are, they do not know when to give up, and they always believe they can do something against a superior being. Better kill them. And a sphere of blue fire concentrated towards her, and the impact of it caught her attention. Tiamat had shot him after recovering and getting up, and that was something that Nema did not see in favor. Tiamat with her wings spread flew and attacked Nema, who was getting fed up with this. Nema with her claws made several slashes that launched several half-moon, cutting magical blasts towards Tiamat, who narrowly avoided them with good maneuvers in the air, and the dragon would take some distance after the attacks ended. Now you see that you are not going to achieve anything against me as I currently am. Nema actually found it somewhat funny how the dragon fought, but now she was very annoying. I'm sorry succubus, but giving up is not in my language. Tiamat would sigh and would be enveloped in his aura and blue fire. We won't let them get away with this. Blah, blah. Always talking like heroes, and that already seems boring to me and even ridiculous. Nema made a gesture with her hand, as if it were a person speaking while she mocked. Anyway, the talk is over. With that, Tiamat attacked first, launching several bluish flaming blasts towards Nema, who cut the flaming blasts with her claws and immediately reacted to block Tiamat's attack with her claws. Nema immediately took flight while Tiamat did the same. Both began a speed fight in the sky. The fight had no point of lowering its magnitude. Tiamat spun in the air and propelled herself with her wings to attack his opponent like an arrow, her claws extended and enveloped in blue fire. Tiamat spun as he went forward, enveloping herself in his blue fire and now looking like a bluish flaming tornado. Nema felt the force of the impact on his body, with his armor seriously cracking. Force. Even so, with a movement of his claws he managed to hit Tiamat on the right side. Even with her guard up, Tiamat felt her right arm going numb. But even with this, Tiamat's body reacted and moved instinctively in an orthodox manner to avoid Nehema's blow to his person, who was nearby. Tiamat sighed as he flew to a safe distance from Nema, who only tilted her head a little, and then laughed. Haha, I see that you were saved thanks to those annoying instincts of yours. Well. That makes it more fun. And how about this now? As she said that, an image of herself appeared next to Nema, then another, then several more. Try to find out which one is true. Tiamat was surprised to see that she created images of herself, not just one but several. More than 10, and that's what she could count. Without a doubt, she is taking advantage and using Ozzy Dahaka's magic very well. And seeing one of the copies attack made Tiamat dodge the enemy blast, only to give the original the opportunity to attack with magic, hitting the dragon in the back. But this, Tiamat understood that she was, technically, caged. He was at her mercy and Nehema's attacks came and went from various sides. While Tiamat can defend herself against most of them, she cannot avoid or block them all at once. Tiamat was fully alert as she moved within that attack cage, dodging or countering attacks whenever she could. Damn, now that she has left. Suddenly, Tiamat would have an idea come to mind. Hopefully it works for her, or else she will use her other countermeasure. With that, Tiamat began to charge and concentrate her blue fire into her joined hands. Immediately, Tiamat sensed that Nema wanted to stop her attack, so she opted to let her survival instincts take over. In the midst of all this, Tiamat dodged Nehema's attacks while carrying her concentrated blue fire in her hands to make her plan. I hope it helps you. After spending half a minute dodging attacks and charging his own, Tiamat had already charged her attack, dodging one last attack by Nema with her claws. The dragon queen turned in the air and launched a large and concentrated sphere of blue fire towards the sky. The mass of fire he flew upwards without touching an enemy, which surprised Nema. Seeing that the sphere exploded and created a wave of bluish light that covered the sky in the place where they were, the flash of light that I believe was such that it allowed shadows to be created. Shadows. Oh no. Nema internally cursed herself for forgetting the detail that illusions do not create shadows, but she does. Obviously the thing did not end there, since instantly, above the succubus a bluish magic circle appeared with the mark of chaos karma. And said circle released a very strong gravitational force that made Nema descend a little, who could feel the great force of this gravity. Tiamat on her side had already inhaled a large breath of air, being enveloped in her immense flaming bluish aura, with slight reddish details. With this, Tiamat launched a large and fierce bluish flame with slight reddish details, which was very concentrated. The attack hit Nema, who was knocked back and felt the damage, with her armor being damaged. Just at that moment, Tiamat returned to the attack and had her fist wrapped in her blue fire to deliver a strong blow. It seemed that he was going to do it, but out of nowhere, with a devilish circle at the side. Her feet, Nema disappeared from attack range, and Tiamat passed by without hitting her target. Immediately, the dragon sensed danger due to her instincts, but there was no way out. Ifufufufu, it hurts, but you trusted that last bit. Nema reappeared next to Tiamat, with her claws ready to deliver the final blow. And here it is. Your reward. Without mercy, Nema with all her concentrated power, nailed her claws into Tiamat's torso, piercing her flesh. Tiamat let out a loud moan with blood from her mouth at that, but instantly. I as she would scream in great pain because a strong reddish electric discharge ran through her body without mercy on her. But it didn't end there. Since Nema, with her claws in her other free hand, stabbed Tiamat in the left side of the stomach, causing the dragon queen's screams to grow louder and seem to be heard in the distance. And said stab in the left side of her stomach was accompanied by even a very dark purple fire almost black enveloping her, increasing her pain and agony more and more. Nema laughed happily at it. She did it. And within seconds, Tiamat's screams would cease and the succubus would stop her lightning and flames. Seeing that now, with his head down, Tiamat's body was all burned and his scales damaged and he didn't seem to react, so. Have a good trip. Queen Dragon. Nema removed her claws from the body of the aforementioned, letting the dragon's body simply fall to the ground, inert and showing no signs of getting up again. Nema laughed at that, one less annoyance. And he didn't have to go to the real 100% of him to achieve it. It was complicated, but. It was worth it. Plunged into endless darkness, a place where time did not pass in the same way as in reality, floating in nothingness, there was Tiamat, who had her eyes closed while he floated in that dark space. How ironic, he fought with the best he had. To end up like this. If this were his past self, Tiamat wouldn't have cared about dying, he would have just accepted it. Because sometimes, for dragons, death means that they weren't strong enough to accomplish something. But for his current self, death gave him a certain fear and great sadness. Not only because of not being able to be with his loved one again, but he will not be able to see his baby born. He made a promise that he would survive and in the end, it ended like this. How will Issei feel when know that he died fighting hard and bravely? Knowing him, she will surely cry and hate himself for not having protected her, and she doesn't blame him for that. She decided so. Even if he had some chance to survive and get back up, it would be of no use. That succubus has the power of Ozzy Dahaka in a sacred gear and he surely held back on her. Even she can bet that she still has a state in store and similar to that of Issei and Valery with their final armors. How ironic. She never stood a chance against that monster, nor would fighting accompanied by Tannen and the rest have made any difference, they would only have delayed the inevitable. Better she leaves it like this and you're not going to die here. A voice. She swears she heard a mature female voice and for some reason, she seemed familiar, or rather, similar to yours. Who are you? Tiamat asked very barely and without desire. In truth he was not in the mood for anything. And his tone denoted the surrender in his being. Let's just say that I am a being. A primordial and transcendental deity. The symbol of the chaos of primordial creation. Deity. Even with her eyes closed, Tiamat barely reacted to what she heard, and what does a god want from me? Because if you come to tell me that there is hope for him to survive and that he can win, then you waste your time. I do not believe and I do not put my faith in the pathetic gods who never do anything for the world. Without a doubt. You are more like me than I thought. That voice seemed to give a slight laugh. There are even gods who want to do something for the world. But you. The way you look, you're sad. Tiamat didn't react or say anything to what she heard. You have spent your entire life following the principles of your race. Without wondering why you were alone in this world since you were born or how you knew your own name when no one gave you one. Have you even asked yourself all that? Tiamat didn't say anything. He didn't have the answer and it was no use thinking about it. Believe it or not. You are the reincarnation of a transcendental primordial deity whose name is mentioned in its respective mythology. And right now, in this situation where the world is on the verge of extinction, it is time that you know who you are. Primordial mother goddess of chaos and creation. Tiamat. The dragon queen did not know what to say about what she had heard and, even with her eyes closed, suddenly, she began to feel as if a lot of information was going to her head and as if in the depths of her soul. A divine bluish aura glowed. Now you are the new me. It's time for you to wake up and know who you really are. In the religion of ancient Babylon, Tiamat is a primordial goddess of the salt sea and she along with her husband Abzu, the god of freshwater, they produce younger gods. Tiamat is the symbol of the chaos of primordial creation. According to history mythology, Tiamat's husband, Abzu, correctly assuming that some gods on his side plan to kill him and usurp his throne, he decides to attack first and goes to war against those who plan to assassinate him, being killed in the process. With this, Tiamat, enraged, also fights against the assassins of her husband, taking the form of a huge sea dragon. But even with this, Tiamat is killed by Enki's son, the storm god Marduk, along with other gods who cooperated with him, but not before Tiamat has brought the monsters of the Mesopotamian pantheon, including the first dragons, whose bodies were filled with poison instead of blood. After that, the god Marduk chained Tiamat's body in the pits of the abyss and cut it in half, and thanks to this, the sky of the Babylonian Mesopotamian Sumerian gods was created from the upper half of Tiamat's body, and the solid earth was created from the lower half of her body. In addition to her tears became the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. That is where the myth of the goddess Tiamat is known, but it turns out that there is a hidden story that not even the gods who murdered her knew. Tiamat before she died and went to fight, she had made upon herself a ritual of reincarnation or rebirth, one that allows that if she dies, her soul will have the opportunity to return to the world of the living as another being, similar to being reborn. With the consequence that she would not know who she used to be before her and all of her divinity will be hidden and sealed deep within her soul. This is how the goddess Tiamat was reborn and became the dragon queen, Tiamat. She demonstrates the power of a primordial draconian deity, my daughter. My reincarnation. And my successor. But this, even in that dark world. Tiamat's body was enveloped by a divine flaming bluish aura with slight reddish details, and instantly, a dark jet glow was present in her belly and a jet black aura with slight purple details was added to his aura. That was Tiamat, can you hear me? That voice. Maybe. Office. It's time for you to wake up as who you really are, and the fetus in you will give you the power to transcend to an even higher level, so recite this song with the two of us. She doesn't know how or why, but Tiamat now knew what to do and say. And even with her eyes closed, she smiled at the irony. This is the miracle. The hope. Whatever it is. This shows that, even deep inside her, she has hope. So, turquoise blue draconian deity that dwells within me, arise from me chaos and creation. Tiamat began the chant of power. Primordial mother deity of chaos and creation, arise to become a celestial divinity. Office would say her part of her chant. The god of the jet black infinity, even Lilith gave her part in the song. The true mother goddess of chaos and the creation of the gods. We will transcend and accept the oath of the world. We accept and represent the chaos and harmony of creation and destruction. My absolute, fiery and radiant divinity will dissolve the sky and make them prostrate before my majesty. Deity dragon creator of chaos. That last verse of the song was accompanied by the world of infinite darkness dissolved, leaving only a bluish space with reddish details. And in it, a purple magic circle, with a symbol of two snakes biting each other's tails, forming the symbol of infinity, appeared over Tiamat. And said circle lowered until it enveloped the dragon and, with that bluish reddish space would shine in a jet glow that enveloped everything. In the reality, Nema was about to retreat elsewhere to finish off the strong members of DXD, but as soon as she took a couple of steps, she felt an immense unrecognizable pressure in the environment. She was crushing and scary. It was then that, out of nowhere, an immense blue and red glow would be present in the place, and the succubus would see that said glow came out and enveloped Tiamat's body. But what? No. Impossible. The blue flash that came out of the dragon's body turned turquoise with slight reddish scarlet details and began to take physical form at the same time as Tiamat stood up. That act greatly surprised Nema, who could not believe that she, at death's door, she is rising. Tiamat stood up at the same time as his wings spread, giving the sensation that he was going to take flight. The turquoise flash was still there, enveloping the dragon. I won't let you finish what you're doing. Nema launched several diabolical magical blasts towards the dragoness, who didn't even move. Her instincts warned her of the danger, and Tiamat waited for the last second of having them close to her to, with a simple movement of her hands, reject all the blasts launched and send them away to explode in the sky. Nema didn't believe it. How come she? The flash around Tiamat began to die and move away from his body, as if shedding a skin. Now the new appearance of the dragoness could be seen. His hair was still the same straight blue color, accompanied by two jet black lines, followed by the fact that the tips of his hair were reddish, his face looked more human, and he had pointed ears, with his eyes slanted like a reptile and blue in color. With red. He also had two large horns on his head that extended back and a little down to his mid-back. Her arms up to her shoulders had blue scales, and her legs had blue scales up to above her knees, without reaching her waist, where there was a garment that covered her privacy. You could also see her exposed belly and part of her torso, with her breasts wrapped in her blue scales. The claws on her feet and hands were reddish, and she had a tail on her lower back. To finally see how her dragon wings spread on her back, but her wings were no longer two, now they were four majestic dragon wings. Who are you? Why you? Nema asked, trembling because her body felt the danger of being in front of that being. The being? Tiamat. She did not respond to her question, and she only saw her surroundings and herself for a few seconds, closing her hands and straining to appreciate the change in her. And as a last action, she took her hand to her belly. She closed her eyes and waited a few seconds until she smiled as she felt the heartbeat of life. The fetus, her baby, was fine. It's a relief, and I was once a deity who was killed by her own children for the purpose of creating our mythological pantheon. And I was reborn as a mortal. And now, the two parts of me have come together and created a new being. I am the lesser dragon mother goddess of chaos and creation. Tiamat. Her words were accompanied by a powerful and disturbing divine draconian aura surrounding her, and said aura went to the sky, crossing even the dimensional gap. In the distance, all the members of DXD and remaining members of clippath felt that powerful divine aura. It was one that represented chaos and harmony. Even with a bewilderment, Cao Cao would feel a pulse coming from the spear of him. It seems that the will of Elohim has an idea and it's worth a try. So he raised his spear, which was enveloped in a powerful divine energy. The true Longinus would release a strong electromagnetic pulse that crossed even the dimensional gap. In the pantheon of Babylonian mythology, in a great majestic castle, in his throne room where he was sleeping, suddenly, the god Anu and current chief god of his mythology woke up with a start after feeling a very familiar energy and presence, one that he had not felt before. Millennia and Anu Sama, the one who entered the room in a hurry and without permission, was the goddess of the earth, creation and fertility, Antu. The beautiful black-haired goddess was very excited and even she was sweating tea. This presence is, yeah, it's her. It's somewhat different, but the essence is the same. Anu nodded, closing her eyes. And when he opened them, he saw that they reflected fear and happiness. Our mother. She has returned to the world. Suddenly, and without expecting it, a holographic image appeared in front of both gods, which began to reproduce everything that was happening in that very isolated area of the biblical underworld. The battle between the creatures on both sides was intense, but within seconds, the image changed to show Tiamat in his new form. Anu and Antu did not know what to say about what they saw, with the goddess being on the verge of crying when she saw her mother returned. And without knowing it, or perhaps they already assumed it, the same image was being reproduced throughout their pantheon, with all the Babylonian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian gods watching what happened, all with different reactions. Some happy and others scared. Antu, the aforementioned, would go to see Anu. Find Anat, and if everyone else is seeing this, then tell them to get ready. We will go there, and we will support our mother to win this war for the world. Those beings will not get their way. The goddess nodded to what her current leader had said, going to find and prepare the others. It is time for one of the mythologies that have been kept hidden and isolated, as if they had never existed. Go out and show yourself to the rest. At the same time that this was happening, it was possible to see that the images of the battle between DXD against clippath in that isolated area of the underworld, it made every leader of every faction and mythology who saw that speechless. In Christian heaven, Michael and the rest of his brothers with the other angels could not believe the kind of battle that was taking place in that place. And from what they could see, only Metatron and the brave saints who were there were fighting on the battlefield, and Gabriel stayed on that ship that they identified as a large Nordic ship. In the underworld, on Grigori's side, Azazel looked at the battle that was taking place seriously. In truth, he hoped that Issei, Valery and the others would be able to endure a triumph, but he knows that if they want to guarantee their victory over this crisis, they must act now. In the area of the demons in the underworld, the different demons of all ranks and the other three mass watched a fierce battle that was taking place. They could see the great effort that the DXD members who went in advance were giving, and in Asgard, Olympus and Japanese folklore, Odin, Zeus and Izanagi looked at what was happening seriously. And in the Hindu religion, Indra watched a battle that was taking place with an amused laugh, while Shiva, Brahma and Vishnu looked serenely at what was happening. Perhaps it is time for the destroyer god to make his appearance. And all of this was seen the same by all the beings of great power who saw the battle that would decide the fate of the world. With that, all the leaders of the allied factions made a decision. Even if they create internal problems and so on, they can't let the world end today. So, in one way or another, they calmed their subjects and prepared them to go fight. They just hope that the core members of DXD can hold out long enough. Returning to the battlefield. After giving his presentation and showing off his powerful aura, Tiamat would view his opponent in a calm and imposing manner. Nema felt great fear and chills run through her body just by exchanging glances with the dragon deity. Without knowing it, she took a couple of steps back and at that moment, Tiamat suddenly disappeared from her range. A vision, and suddenly, Nema would feel great pain in her body and would spit out a mouthful of blood, added to the fact that her armor was almost completely destroyed. And when she turned behind her, she saw that Tiamat was there, calm and as if nothing had happened. What's happening? Does your trust extend this far? Tiamat asked with a slight mocking laugh. And I didn't make fun of you. Nema did not finish her words, since she felt a strong blow on her stomach from Tiamat, who was now in front of her. And said blow sent the succubus flying until it crashed into a rocky building. Tiamat gave a half smile at this, almost not believing her current power. In her past life, although she was powerful, she was at the level of a transcendental being in the top 10, being below the level of Dragon Albion, but now this new power and such made her transcend even more and, not to sound arrogant, but you can bet that she is now equal or even stronger than Dragon Albion individually. Oh well, then she finds out. Ha! With that scream that sent the rubble flying, Nema would leave her place, who looked totally angry. Don't think it's a big deal just because your power increased a little. And do you have an ace to face me in this state? Asked Tiamat, crossing her arms, provoking the succubus. Obviously damn lizard. With her aura increasing from her, Nehema's armor completely rebuilt, beginning to emanate a very dangerous aura. She observes the true power of diabolism and succumbs to it, but that, out of nowhere. Several red lights came out of the armor's jewels, and the same sinister and disturbing voice came out of them. At that, Nema began to sing. I am the one who carries the will of the evil dragon that was born from the diabolism of the evil god. Time of our rebirth, the voice of Ozzy Dahaka was heard from those orbs of light. I will corrupt dreams and bring infinite diabolical chaos. We represent the thousands of forbidden witchcrafts. I will become the forbidden evil dragon of diabolism. We were born from the darkness and evil will of the evil god. Nehema's armor began to mutate at the same time as she sang. First her armor gained thickness, then 6 dragon wings spread on her back and 3 tails appeared on her lower back. At the end, 2 dragon heads with long necks even emerged from her back, and when they were placed at the same height and next to the arms, it seemed that the succubus now had 4 arms. Seeing this, Tiamat was a little amazed. The power of an evil dragon was incredible and terrifying. And the whole world will tremble before the diabolical chaos of Zoroastrianism. Juggernaut diabolism drive. The aura of the new being in the place made the surroundings tremble. With many in the distance being afraid of that evil power. The being in front of the dragon deity, Tiamat, looked like a dragon armor with 6 wings, 3 tails, with 2 long heads that moved freely, and its eyes was a little taller, about almost 2 meters high. Now prepare to die, Dragon Queen. Tiamat. Nehema's voice was now sinister and penetrating, intoning her evil because there will be no second time for you when I truly kill you. We'll see about that. Tiamat stood on guard, ready to face his opponent. And without expecting it, but not caring, something similar to a halo appeared on his back, only. Said halo was the Ouroboros symbol of infinity, the symbol of office. The dragon deity who has the blessing and power of the infinity god dragon. Time to continue this battle for the fate of the world. Not knowing that it was time for the real battle for the world to begin, followed by an awakening. Chapter 50 Team DXD vs clippath. Revelations and Resurrection. On your way to the largest and tallest building in all of Greece, Issei, Valery and Asia noticed that the barrier over the city had eliminated all attempts to communicate or know what was happening outside. They couldn't even know how intense the battle was out there, but they have faith that everyone will be there. Good. Their flight to their destination was calm and without any attack from any enemy, but there was great tension in the atmosphere. And just seeing the entire floating city of Greece empty and without any civilians made Greece look like a ghost city. Or a dead city, even though there is no damage to the buildings or anything, everything is normal. But anyway, they lasted almost half an hour flying towards their destination at a normal speed, but with some haste, they couldn't waste energy on a quick flight, since they already spent some energy fighting those creatures after arriving here with a rest. And obviously, it was obvious to the celestial couple, thanks to her senjutsu, that there were only a few presences in the place where they were going, managing to identify Razavam and Rizavam, as well as Issei's parents, but there was one more that none of them could identify and, seeing themselves in front of a large tall building, the 3 young people understood that they had reached their destination. Here began the impossible, and there was no return once they entered. Whatever happens, let it happen. When they took a few steps to enter the building through the main entrance, Issei felt a bad feeling in his being. He felt like someone was in danger of death or, is something wrong, Ai-san? Asia asked him, worried when he saw him with a somewhat pale expression. And no. It's nothing. Issei would shake his head and sigh. Maybe I worry too much about the rest that I'm imagining things. I understand you. I feel the same. Valery could feel and hear his heartbeat. The nerves and so on were great. But we won't gain anything by losing our cool. We just have to continue and achieve our part. Issei and Asia nodded decidedly at what Valery had said. They had to continue. And by managing to enter the building without problems through the main entrance, it showed that their enemies were waiting for them. And although they felt like they were going to hell of the devil, they had no choice but to do so. And they were sure that even Razavam may be watching them right now, and that any suspicious move they make to try to trick him, he will know about it and won't hesitate to kill Issei's parents. They really feel pathetic for having to play into the enemy's palm, but it's all they have. Although they were also prepared for the worst. After all, difficult decisions require strong wills. No matter how much they hurt. The battle outside Greece had already taken its final phase and was no less active than before. The intensity of the battle had not decreased at any time and, in fact, it seems that it only increased its intensity. Seeing how more of those creatures and black scale males appeared on the field, followed by the now revived dead enemies, made everyone understand that this was the final phase of the battle. Issei, Valery and Asia must have already reached the enemy's base, so now they only have to hold on and also increase the intensity. And right now, splaff. The sound of a slap was heard in a certain part of the field where, you are very disappointing and an idiot. Die Hauser-kun. Venelana had slapped champion Belial after he explained that she was with clippath for certain reasons, but especially one. Cleria would be disappointed in you if she saw you. I know. Hauser accepted as he rubbed the bruised spot, he deserved it. And he was already waiting for it. And I regret that I realized too late of my bad decision. That's not enough. Accepting to destroy the world, all in order to get your cousin back. Venelana was angry and disappointed in Champion Belial, but at the same time she understood it. But she didn't understand it anyway. Accepted. Cleria would not want to continue living knowing that you sacrificed the world to bring her back. I know that very well now. Hauser would sigh and stand firm. I will accept any punishment they want to give me, and I will even carry this in for my entire life. But now we have higher priorities. Is right. We'll talk after his sentence. Sona, seriously, would approach the champion. Hauser Sama, tell us, what is Razavum Lucifer really planning? I will only say that the two celestial dragons and his companion are heading towards a trap. Everyone feared that it would be like that, and that Hauser himself confirms it terrifies them even more. And if they want to overcome this trap, the only option they have is to sacrifice what the Securitate loves most for the good of the world. And the question would be, can he do it? Sacrifice your family for the good of the world. Is he really telling us that there is nothing more we can do, except wait? Riaz was elated, nervous and scared. In truth, she didn't want that kind of scenario in exchange for victory, but. Victory always comes with a great price, Riaz Gremory. And none of them are too tall. Hauser would look in a certain direction, seeing how more of those creatures were approaching the place. If they perish and did not sacrifice those two humans, then they did not have the necessary will. The same human parents of Ice Kun that you helped kidnap. Irina looked annoyed and distrustful at the champion. We are in this situation because of you. I know, and I accept everything they say and throw against me. Hauser would launch a powerful demonic blast at a group of those creatures in the distance and send them flying. But now we only have this, fight and wait. Reluctantly, everyone nodded in agreement and prepared to return to the fight. They really hoped that the three young people in agrees would be able to overcome the trap and difficult test of will. In another part of the battlefield, in a somewhat tall rocky building. Balbrith looked at the cruel battle that was raging without any expression. Seeing how the DXD forces continue to fight hard despite the obvious difference in numbers was admirable. But at the same time that confuses the artificial demon, he doesn't understand. Why are they still fighting a losing battle? What do they gain from this? Why don't they understand how cruel this world is? Although of course, he is no one to say or think how he sees the world, since he was born he has not suffered the so-called injustices or discriminations of the world, he has only prepared himself for this moment. To make the dream of their lord and father figure come true, the one who treated them more like people than weapons, even though he knew they were just sacrifices to achieve his dream, and that did not matter to Balbrith and his sister, just by achieving fulfill their father's dream they would accept death with pleasure, but now, doubts. Just by hearing that voice, when he turned around, he saw that Varin landed next to him, looking similar to him. I do not blame you. Me too. I have a mental conflict right now. Varin, you. Do you think we do the right thing? Balbrith asked the question, putting his eyes back on the battle that was taking place. Because just seeing how DXD came here, even with little chance of success and with everything against them, they continue fighting for what they believe in. And that makes me wonder. What is the right thing to do, sister? I don't know, Bal. I don't know. Varin shrugged. Reassigned. For my part, I just plan to watch until something big happens. I'll make my decision later. I understand. Well. Balbrith agreed to this. And with that, both artificial demons continued to watch the battle that raged. They didn't want to make a very hasty decision right now, they are afraid of making a bad decision now and regretting it later. Since only a few people can decide how this will continue and conclude. On the other hand, another great battle was about to begin, or rather, it has already begun. The clash of the divine and diabolic blasts caused a strong explosion that further destroyed the area where they were. The dragon deity, Tiamat, and the possessor of Ozzy Dahaka's will, Nema, they looked at each other with intensity and great pressure in the environment. Without saying or expressing anything, Tiamat flew towards her opponent with her fist raised, ready to deliver a blow. You won't. Nema raised the two extendable heads and sent them to attack at high speed to ward off the dragon that was coming towards her. What I don't expect is for jet black energy to envelop Tiamat and for her to push upwards at a speed that easily exceeds that of sound or even faster. The only thing that was seen was a flash of blue-green energy. Black with reddish details that flew back towards the succubus. Nema tried to protect herself with the extendable heads, but the deity dragon immediately changed direction downwards and appeared right in front of her prey. Tiamat charged his fist in divine aura and turquoise fire, giving the succubus such a blow in the chest that it was heard loudly. The dragon deity did not stop her attack and launched a flurry of several blows towards the succubus with blinding speed and fearsome force. Each blow cracked the metal of the armor as Nema withstood the dragon deity's strafing attack with all her might. After regaining some consciousness, the succubus created a field of devilish energy that forcefully pushed the dragon deity away from her. Tiamat recovered in the air and pointed her hand and open palm at her opponent. And within seconds, a sphere of aqua-green water and reddish particles the size of a soccer ball formed in front of his hand. Adasui, the compressed aquiosphere became a torrent of aqua-green water and flew towards Nema, who took flight to avoid said attack, although it ultimately hit two of her right wings and right extendable head, dissolving and melting part of these. The attack continued in the distance and hit a mountain in the distance, which in just seconds became nothing. Seeing how that mountain seemed melted and dissolved, frightened the few who could notice what was happening in the distance. What power. Nema couldn't believe what he saw. And she was sure that if she had received that, she would have hopefully come out alive, but not intact. Even so, she created 6 devilish circles, accumulated power, and pointed them towards the dragon deity, which she was not worried about. Don't think I'll let you do what you want. Tiamat accumulated energy in his body and hands. The aura that surrounded her was chaotic, a very dense dark red. But at the same time the bluish divine aura emanated from her. Chaotic divinity, symbol of creation. Show up and show your power. And eradicate those who bring misfortune to the world. Draconic cannon of divine chaos. The dragon deity shot the energy into her hands, which took the shape of a dragon head. Nema launched her own attack from her devilish circles, the 6 shots turned into a torrent of devilish energy. Both attacks collided with each other, and they tried to overcome the other, but the dragon's head was gaining ground. The succubus was not willing to receive that attack, the damage would be monstrous. Taking flight, Nema saw how in the end both attacks exploded. Tiamat looked at her prey, and after giving a sigh, she enveloped herself in chaotic divine energy and flew against the succubus who had also enveloped her body in an aura. Diabolical, very dark purple, almost black. Both opponents went against each other and collided in midair to give rise to a colossal battle in the air. They both flew at a blinding speed, and every time they collided, the sky flashed and the ground shattered, affecting everyone nearby, regardless of whether they were friend or foe. The combat scene from below was impressive for the few who could see it, but they still couldn't be distracted by that, they have enemies to defeat. Although, on his side, Crom Cru watched the battle that was taking place with interest. And he had no doubt about what he saw. Tiamat had transcended and surpassed the celestial dragon level. Well, that succubus could be compared to a celestial dragon, thanks to the power of Ozzy Dahaka added to his own. What an interesting and obvious power difference. If Tiamat wanted to, he could end this in a matter of nothing. But her opponent was very slippery and skilled, and Tiamat was not willing to launch attacks left and right that would wear her down and weaken her. He needs an opportunity, an opening, and he will be able to win. Crom Cru looked curious as one of those giant black scale males approached him and looked at it without much interest. Pathetic. In a movement at high speed, Crom Cru reappeared behind the large black scale male, which simply fell to pieces without rebuilding itself. In the underworld, in the demonic territory. The battle, almost war, between DXD against clippath was seen by everyone. Adults and children, pure, reincarnated and hybrids. The most powerful demons felt a desire to be there, fighting against those enemies, but others used their logic of not wanting to get involved, since there were many enemies. The battle, almost war, showed how the forces of both sides threw themselves against each other and fought in every way necessary or possible. But right now, in the main castle of Lucifuge, the city that was the home of Lucifer, Serziches was sweating profusely. He couldn't believe this. The council doesn't want to help in this crisis. It's crazy right now. The Crimson Mau was in front of the main members of the Demon Council, who, in their arrogance, did not want to lift a finger to end this war. Because our species and the entire world are on the brink of the end, don't they see that the main members of DXD are there, fighting for our lives and the world? Serziches exclaimed, furious at this. Ajuka and Falbium were next to his friend, who was trying not to destroy the place with his aura. There is no lack of desire. We know it and we see it, Mau-sama. But we cannot risk our soldiers and people for a resistance battle that will result in the death of many. We had enough with the last attack by those humans last year, resulting in the death of many and our strength being lowered, making us appear vulnerable. What's more, if DXD manages to weaken clippath or prevent the awakening of that beast, the better for us. 2 of the demon councillors spoke in a haughty manner. Serziches didn't know what to say or believe. They can't be serious. I'm going to see his best support in this meeting. Zekrom Bale was present, but his expression indicated that although he supported sending reinforcements to DXD, his voice had no weight before the council. Serziches was beginning to get frustrated and angry even more. While Ajuka discreetly and with an analytical eye saw the grimaces and expressions of the councillors. You could tell they were planning something. It's not exaggerating if you think about the possibility that these idiots want the 3 of them to go to the battlefield to fight and die in the process, and then take advantage of that. In reality, he is tempted to think that it could be like that. Because they cannot. Because there are greater priorities, Mau-sama. Lord Bael, one of the nobles who supports the ideas of the Demon Council, interrupted Surzich's words. We cannot risk our people and soldiers for this war, which will only reduce us even further than we already are. First the biblical war, then the civil war, followed by the attack by those self-proclaimed heroes humans, and now this. Our faction could run out of military power at this rate and leave us worse off than 2,000 years ago. Of biblical warfare. Surzich's clicked his tongue at what he had heard and reluctantly had to agree with Lord Bael. The damage to the underworld is still somewhat serious and present after the previous attack, followed by many dead soldiers. They are poorer and vulnerable than before, something that is considered unheard of for a race as proud as them. And that bothers him. And by what right do you say that? Someone's voice was heard, and he was walking towards them at a slow pace. Yes, because of their way of doing things, and so on, they have made our society stagnate even in power, all because of the stupid belief that it is enough to just be born strong, and that's it, instead of seeking power on your own. DCHU. Lord Bael and the councillors looked angry and indignant, but at the same time somewhat nervous, at the man in front of them. He had silver ash hair, blood-red eyes, and he looked like he was over 30 years old, but he was still young. Valery Lucifer. Surzich's and his compatriots, as well as Zekrom, they looked almost in disbelief at the man who arrived suddenly. Valery Lucifuge, the one who is known as the direct son of the demon Lucifuge, a person who has remained neutral since the biblical war ended and who never supported any side in the civil war. Valery is Graia's grandfather and is even the leader of the Tiamat faction, a demonic faction that agrees with the change in current customs of the underworld and who wish to remedy the imperfections of their race. But even with the ideology that he must be a direct descendant of one of the original mass who leads the underworld and agrees with its current conditions. Since this faction follows the true will of Lucifer, a true one that only they know and not the others who believe that their founder was evil. Surprised. Valery would laugh sarcastically and sighed. I'm here to give my support in helping DXD. Lucifer-sama, our founder, would have wanted it that way. Absurd. Do you plan to sacrifice our people for this battle that will leave us even more on the brink of extinction? One of the indignant councillors criticized and complained. So, answer me this, Demon Council. Why are our forces so pathetically weak? What did you say? One of the councillors got angry at Valery's question. Are you implying that we are weaklings? Yes. Valery agreed, unfazed and laughing. Our soldiers, our people. They are all weak. So much so that in our golden age during the war, soldiers were very capable. And the current soldiers and supreme class demons are children in front of the ancients who fought alongside Lucifer-sama in the war. And you want to know why? Silence was something Valery expected and he smiled satisfied. Simple. You carry that pathetic ideology that only talent matters, that if you are born with power and talent, you will be a winner all your life. When the reality is that. Shut up. Lord Bael wanted him to stop, he did not want to listen to that ideology that he considered weak. Effort and dedication outweigh talent. You have all seen it today. Sir Bael, your own son Lord Bael, demonstrated the difference between talent and effort and dedication. And he earned his place as heir to his house even without possessing the power of his family. And all this shows that your ideology. It is the true weakness of our race. The reason why we are stagnant in military power, the reason why we are a race despised by the rest. And the reason why we are now on the verge of extinction is because of your stupid ideology. Shut up. Angrily, Lord Bael launched a blast of Hakai no Chikara towards the son of the first minister of the underworld. But the latter with just an outstretched hand and some silver aura caught the attack and dispelled it without any damage to his hand. Pathetic. Even the soldiers of Bael during the war gave attacks more powerful than this. And you are supposed to be a high-class demon and patriarch of your house. By ancient standards, your power is barely that of an upper-lower class. Valery said. Shut up, you damned liar. Our society is based on the purity of our blood, on our talent and power that is with us from our birth and never degenerates, that is the will of the original mass. Lord Bael exclaimed angrily. TSK, TSK, TSK. Valery would shake his head 3 times, looking funny. I guess I have to do my job as the first minister and Lucifer-sama's true right-hand man. Everyone was confused by what Valery said, even those from the council called him crazy, but instantly, a circle demonic appeared in Valery's hand. One that made everyone almost shocked when they recognized it. You know what this is, right? Zekt. The demonic spell of oath and judgment. Ajuka knew that spell, as it is one that belonged to the ancient era when Lucifer lived. It was said that this spell, which was created solely by Lucifer, was used to always know the truth and know when someone was lying, used mostly in trials. Not to mention that the consequences of said spell are that if someone breaks the oath of the spell, it will kill the person who dared to lie. Which is why the current council has banned the use of this spell and did not allow any information about it to spread. But Ejuka discovered it after wanting to know more about the demonic magic of the ancient era. Correct, Ejuka-kun. So. Refusal would raise the demonic magic circle, and. In the name of Lucifer Sama and the entire underworld, I swear that everything I am going to say below is true. The demonic circle would shine and turn black-white or grayish for a change, with reddish details. That indicated that he has made the pact. Alright then. Let me say this to everyone. Everything you know about me is a lie, a cover that I created thanks to Lucifer Sama. Everyone was speechless at what they heard, and some counselors chuckled at what they heard. They expected this fool to suffer the consequences of the demonic pact he made, but just seeing that the circle did not activate showed that Refusal is serious. My name is not actually Refusal, and I am not the direct son of the demon Lucifuge. Actually. The demon would smile confidently and amused. I am Lucifuge, the original. The authentic and true right-hand man of Lucifer Sama. Everyone was speechless at what they heard, and just seeing that Zek did not activate the consequence by lying made everyone even more shocked. It was not possible. It can't be true, one of the counselors screamed and refused to believe this. It must be a trick, a pathetic trick to deceive us. So you think? In that case, how about you make sect and I swear before you that what I say is true. In that case, I will do it. The counselor, who was seen to be the leader, stood in front of the Lucifuge and created the magic circle of Zek. Do you swear to tell the truth? The counselor smiled lowly, believing that they had won, but, I swear. The Lucifuge touched the counselor's circle of Zekt, and this shined like the previous one. I am Lucifuge, the authentic and true right-hand man of Lucifer Sama. But that said, everyone waited a few seconds and nothing. Nothing had happened. Just seeing how Zekt's circle was still there, without showing any change, left everyone in absolute shock. It was also known that when Zekt's circle was used in the past during the trials, the victim who made the pact had the powers sealed from her. Since if someone weak made the pact against someone stronger, the latter would not suffer the consequence of dying after lying, due to the great difference between magical powers, and Zekt would only show signs and break to show that the victim lied. And that alone was enough of an answer to know that Refusal, or rather, Lucifuge, was telling the truth. Something impossible to believe, but all the evidence was already shown and was irrefutable, with Zekt still intact in the air. Impossible. The counselor leader stepped back trembling with fear, and all of his compatriots were the same age. How come you? Is he still alive? Lucifuge completed the question, looking amused. To make it simpler. Lucifuge would activate the counselor leader Zekt again. I swear that everything I say is true. Zekt glowed and showed its activated colors. To sum it up, Lucifer Sama asked me not to participate in the war, the same for Satnachia, Agilirith, Flurity, Sargatanas and Nibiros. Since Lucifer Sama wanted us to lead the underworld in case he died in the war, serving his most trusted descendant and the one who thinks the same as him. And unfortunately, Rizavam Livan Lucifer and Razavam Lucifer do not meet Lucifer Sama's true standards. Everyone didn't know what to say about what they heard, and just seeing that Zek didn't show any change, showed that what they heard was true. And at the same time, 5 more people appeared behind Lucifuge. Those who are known as the direct children of 5 of the 6 original demons who served Lucifer as his right hands. But if they had in front of them the original Lucifuge himself, who posed as someone else, then those were. Before the biblical war, I, Satnachia, Agilirith, Flurity, Sargatanas and Nibiros, received the order from Lucifer Sama to even pass ourselves off as descendants or children of ourselves, just in case he died in the war. And we did that. Also, let me tell you the true story of Lucifer Sama and the way he is. With this, and making another pact with Zekt, Lucifuge began to briefly tell the true story of Lucifer. The angel known as Luzbel, who was the first fallen angel not mentioned in any record, the one who became a demon due to because he let the evil of the underworld consume him, but without affecting his personality, thus becoming the demon Lucifer. The one who became what he is at the request of Elohim, the biblical god, since it was his destiny to be the villain of history and to be the one who becomes the enemy of humanity, to make them stop their wars and conflicts and united by a common threat. That even Lucifer was kind to even those of the lowest ilk and valued effort and dedication over talent. Since that didn't matter. That there was nothing special in blood, everyone was equal, and that power is achieved regardless of the medium. That although they are demons, they are simple mortals compared to the gods, who are true omnipotent beings whose powers do not degenerate. On the other hand, mortals like them, their powers do degenerate over time. And in the end, that cycle of demons being enemies of humanity to keep them united, was broken when the biblical war began. The one that was caused by Leviathan, Beelzebub and Asmodeus, who acted behind Lucifer's back. The 3 of them being the reason why the demons are the way they are now, for not following the orders and will of the original Mayu and founder, his demonic god even. All those revelations fell like an anvil or a bucket of cold water on everyone. No one could believe what they were hearing, even Surziches, Ajuka, Falbium and Zekrom had a hard time believing it, but Just seeing how Zek didn't break or anything was all the proof that everyone needed to understand what it was. True. Those of the council plus Lord Baal fell to the ground on their knees at what they heard. The truth had hit them very hard, even damaging his pride. And obviously, Lucifuge and his compatriots were pleased with that. It was time to act. We regret that it must be at this kind of moment. Lucifuge would look at Serziches and his compatriots. But we really hope that there would be a descendant of Lucifer Sama who would follow the same principles as him and then show us who we really are. But now this is necessary. I understand. Serziches was serious and somewhat cautious in front of these guys. Although I am bothered by the fact that it must be just now that they show themselves, I have to assume that even you did not expect this, right? That's right. Lucifuge nodded. He calls all the soldiers and that this is mandatory, that even the supreme and high-class demons join with their retinues. It is time to fight for our future, since the future belongs to those who have the courage to fight for it. Lucifer Sama used to say that. I consider it somewhat ironic, but for the first time, Falbium seemed animated and motivated by something. It's true. If we don't do it, no one else will. Let's move. Serziches and his compatriots began to move to do their duty. They already had the approval to act as they wanted. They can go fight for their people, for their future. Zekrom, the aforementioned, would go to see Lucifuge. Stay here and keep an eye on these morons. Don't let them out for anything. I understand, Lucifuge Sama. Zekrom nodded and accepted the order with a nobler bow. Since his ancestor, the original demon Baal in his house, served Lucifuge. The same for Aegers and Marbas. Very well. Lucifuge would go to see his compatriots, who could finally break the act of being descendants of themselves. We'll keep up the facade until this is all over, and then we'll reveal who we really are to the public. For now, help organize the army, and I will do the same. Yes, they nodded and affirmed, Satnachia, Agalirith, Flurity, Sargatanas and Nibiros. Who went to do their duty. Oh. You can tell they hit them hard. With that voice, someone else entered the place. A girl of about 19 or 20 years old who still looked very young, with a big bust. Long ash silver hair and blood red eyes. Oh well, they deserved it. Ain, could you stay and watch these idiots together with Zekrom? In addition, it forms a barrier to prevent them from leaving. Said Lucifuge. I will do it without problems, father. Ain smiled sideways with confidence and would go to see Lord Baal, those of the council and other nobles who supported them, who were afraid when they saw and felt the girl's aura. Ain Lucifuge, Lucifuge's most recent daughter with his current wife. All of them are part of the Trumas faction and follow the true will of Lucifer. Lucifuge would leave the place, leaving those who would stay in that room. Ain would raise her hand, creating a barrier that blocked any exit from that room. No one could leave or enter unless she allows it, or they force the exit and entry by force, which must be equal to or greater than hers. A strength and power that none of these poor closed-minded devils have. Since Ain, even for her age, 19-20 years old, she is the equivalent of a Mayu-class demon in all aspects, since she was trained arduously by her father in all possible aspects, physical condition and very high magical power. There is nothing she lacks, and even she has the charisma of a leader. On her way inside the largest and tallest building in Agrees, Issei, Valery and Asia noticed that the whole place was more than empty and obviously there were only 5 other inhabitants, 4 of whom knew who they were, and the last one was still unknown, but Valery could feel that last presence in the place as very familiar. When the 3 of them saw themselves in front of a large door, the 3 of them saw each other's faces and then nodded and opened it without hesitation. When they crossed it, they saw themselves in what would be a large, very spacious room with nothing inside, not a single piece of furniture or chandelier. Luxurious. Only the common lights that illuminated the place and right in front of them, somewhat far away, as if waiting for their arrival, was Razavam. Lucifer's grandson only seemed calm and not at all affected by all this. There he was, standing as calm as one can see and believe. I see that they have finally arrived. Razavam looked pleased as the 3 young people approached him at a slow pace. Without a doubt, everything is going just as I planned. Although I admit that I underestimated their allies and the forces they brought, that I had to spill everything on them. What are you trying to say? That our friends killed the best on your side? Valery spoke with sarcasm and seriousness, but his father's laughter made her look at him alertly, as did Issei and Asia. Hahaha. It could be said. So we better do this quickly. Said Razavam. Dijijiji. Finally. At that voice, the 3 young people saw how Razavam arrived at the place. And his expression seemed crazier than before. He no longer had that burlesque and optimistic touch. Now he had a touch of real malice and mockery. I guess I can entertain you and make you suffer. Do you want to fight, old man? Issei seemed confident about facing Lucifer's son. After all, Drake confirmed that with Penetrate they can defeat Rizavam's Sacred Gear Canceller. And if not, he can still use the, now, Scarlet Armor. Since even Azazel confirmed the possibility that Rizavum's ability is limited to sacred gear users weaker than him. And if it is the current them, who 100% have the power to enter the 9th place in the world top 10 as best they can, then Rizavum's sacred gear canceller has little chance of cancelling his abilities. Unfortunately, that will not be possible. The three young people were surprised and felt a little nervous at Razavum's laughter. As if he were saying that. They fell into their game. But not before having the spectators of honor to observe. The demon snapped his fingers as he said this, and then. A magic circle appeared next to him, from which figures began to materialize. And when the brightness ceased. He let himself be seen. Owaka-san, Otu-san. Asia put her hands to her mouth, looking relieved to see the two adults fine and without any physical damage. Plus they seemed unconscious. Mom, Dad. Issei trembled a little from anxiety when he saw them both. Not to mention that they were tied by magic ropes. Oh well, let the show begin. As saying this, Razavum would snap his fingers a few times in front of the Haidu parents, followed by a small shake of his hand to get them to react. Both adults starting to wake up. What? Mickey saw something blurry as she opened her eyes. Gosh, she even felt a headache. Her husband, Goru, was the same as her. And when the woman regained her vision and saw in front of her. Ice. Valery-chan. And Asia-chan. What's happening? Mickey did not continue with her words because she noticed the state she was in, tied by some strange ropes. But what's happening? Son. Girls. Goru also happened to see the young people with doubt and something about them caught his attention. The armor that the celestial couple wore and the blonde's nun outfit. What's going on? And those clothes they are wearing. Mom, Dad, are you okay? Asked Issei out of caution. Yeah. Let's get started at once. Both adults would look doubtfully at Razavum, who was pleased. And both adults saw their kinship with Valery. Couple of gentlemen, I'll just tell you that you are at a crossroads. From a magic circle, Razavum would take out a short knife. So, my daughter, my son-in-law, and Bishop of Gremory, you only have these options: lower your weapons and deactivate your powers, or. Razavum would bring the knife closer to Mickey's neck, who began to feel afraid of that. I cut their necks, until they die. The bastard. Issei trembled with rage and helplessness. And the three of them could tell that Razavum was not joking, that's why he wanted them here. Gijiji. Do as we say, or. Rizavum, laughing evilly, points at Goru's forehead with his finger, in which there was a magic mini-sphere. I blow this human's head off. Issei, Valery and Asia trembled with rage and fear at this. Even though they had the chance to stop clippath's plans once and for all and end this, they are being given a difficult and unprecedented decision. Can they sacrifice the Haidu parents for the good of the world so that it has a future? Unfortunately, they didn't have it. And reassigned, Issei and Valery lowered their guard, simultaneously deactivating their armor and sacred gears in base form. And Asia just started praying while she shook and cried a little. Good? Razavum laughed satisfied at that. They have them at their mercy, with no opportunity for them to do anything. By the way, my daughter. Maybe it's time for you to see one last time the only person who made you who you are today. Valery felt a chill at what he heard, and then. Another magic circle appeared on the other side of Razavum. And from said circle appeared. A woman. A very beautiful woman with long black hair, and she was conscious. You could see her beautiful blue eyes like the sky, and. Her appearance was like seeing a more Valery. Older and mature, preserving adult youth in her features. Mad. Valery trembled and felt her tears coming out of her eyes when she saw him. He didn't want to believe it, but. It was true. It was her, she was here. Hers. Mother. The black-haired woman, now identified as Valery's mother. He looked up until he exchanged glances with Valery. Just by seeing her he was almost shocked that relationship was. Valery. Surprised, Elizabeth-chan. Razavum took the woman's face with her hand and made her pay attention to him. But that he stared at his daughter. Yes. It's what you think. She is our little Valery. And no doubt, she looks a lot like you. Razavum would look at her daughter. And if you're wondering how she's here, well. Let's just say it wasn't easy. Having to use those spies on Grigori and have them find the information about her whereabouts was not easy, but it worked out in the end. Valery was horrified at what he heard, he couldn't believe it. Ifufufufu. My daughter, you did partly right by erasing your mother's memory and sending her back to her country of origin, but. It was also a bad decision. So many days searching with her most trusted ones for her whereabouts, and we only found her a week ago, but it was worth it. Oh well. Father, you can start whenever you want. Finally. Rizavum got a little closer to the three young people who wanted to put themselves on guard, but. Seeing how Razavum threatened to even cut the throat of Valery's mother, he made them desist from doing so. This is for everything they have done. After saying that, and without further ado. Rizavum first grabbed Issei by his hair and forcefully slammed his head into the ground, cracking it. all to the horror of the young man's parents at seeing their son being treated that way. Following, Rizavim began to step on Issei's head several times, followed by turning him over with his foot and kicking him in the stomach, making the young man spit out blood to the horror of his parents and the two girls. Valery and Asia wanted to stop him, but seeing how Rizavim called their attention and threatened to kill the three human adults, made them give up with regret. Issei for his part, while he continued to be mistreated by Rizavim, despite the pain he felt, he did not even beg or cry. I wouldn't give this idiot the pleasure of seeing him suffer, but seeing and feeling how Rizavim stabbed an energy dagger into his abdomen made him groan and spit out blood. But it didn't end there. Since even with the dagger stuck in his abdomen, Rizavim began to move it, cutting the abdomen to Issei's chest, who now began to scream from the pain and agony. Plus her blood started coming out and staining her clothes. Enough. Please. Mickey screamed and begged with tears when she saw what they were doing to her son. And Goro was the same, trying to free himself from his restraints, but nothing. Rizavim turned a deaf ear to their pleas and continued with the torture. Where with the energy dagger he began to make deep cuts on Issei's chest, who continued screaming in pain and agony. Blood was even coming out of his mouth. But seeing how the wound seemed to regenerate due to black energy made Rizavim frown. Yeah. So you have some regeneration like office, huh? Rizavim would turn his magic dagger into a sword. I guess with it I can prolong your agony. That said, Issei's torture continued for a few minutes. Until finally his healing factor stopped. The wounds, cuts and stabs that Rizavim gave him were so deep that the healing factor barely alleviated the pain. And to top it all off, Rizavim would grab Issei by the neck and start punching him repeatedly in the face without mercy. Where after about a minute, Rizavim stopped his beating, leaving Issei's face disfigured, who had bruises, split lips and an almost black eye. Valery and Asia cried with regret when they saw the state of the person they love. And Goro and Mickey were no better, they had never seen their son like that. Very well. Rizavim would separate from the brunette and go to see the two girls. Especially to his granddaughter, who understood that. It's your turn, my granddaughter. Saying that, Lucifer's son began to walk at a slow pace towards his granddaughter, who although she trembled with rage and sadness, could do nothing. One wrong step and his mother and Issei's parents will be killed. No please. Don't do it. Elizabeth, crying from helplessness, would look at her husband. Please. Not her. Don't do anything to him. I beg you. TSK. Rizavim would put his finger in front of his face and would deny 3 times with this. Unfortunately, that creature of ours is a flea in our plans, dear. She was supposed to set a good example for our name and family history, but it turned out to be a total failure. And all because of you. Rizavim with her hand grabbed Elizabeth by her cheeks and forced her to look at him. You went where you shouldn't have. You should have hated and disowned that creature instead of raising it with affection. And although I am also to blame for letting you take care of it, you should not have loved it. Now look how our creature suffers the consequences of its actions influenced by you. With this, Rizavim would be in front of Valery, who looked at his grandfather without fear and with firmness on his face. And with just that, without prior warning. Rizavim would deliver a tremendous blow loaded with demonic light to Valery in her stomach, making her agonize and making him feel the strong burn of said light. Following that, Rizavim would hit her in the face, knocking her to the ground, and then stab her with his energy dagger into her right shoulder, to Valery's loud moan. And that only got worse when Rizavim began to sink the dagger again on the shoulder of the girl, who bit her tongue to avoid screaming. With another dagger of demonic light, Rizavim would begin to leave a deep and long wound on Valery's left arm and then do the same with the right. Following that, Rizavim would make a cut on her right cheek, which began to bleed. Followed by discarding his dagger and charging his fists in demonic light, and with that, Rizavim would begin to give a wave of blows to Valery in the face, without showing any mercy. The girl in the first seconds did not scream, but as the intensity of the blows grew, Valery began to make very loud moans. Elizabeth watched helplessly and with strong tears in her eyes as her daughter was mistreated by Rizavim. Goro and Mickey did the same, although they shouted for him to stop, the son of Lucifer fell on deaf ears and continued with the torture. Where after a couple of minutes, the torture ended. Rizavim showed Valery's face, which was bloody and disfigured, his beauty was ruined, and blood came out of one of his eyes, as if he were crying blood. Elizabeth only cried even more when she saw her daughter like this. She can't protect her now no matter how much she wants to. Rizavim would then go on to see Asia, who feared the worst and thought she would have the same fate, but what are you waiting for, brat? Cure them. Rizavim's proposal left 3 young people confused. You are here for a reason. Be the one to increase the agony of these two. And if you don't do it. Just by looking at the direction Rizavim was looking, Asia saw that Rizavim was equally threatening to kill the 3 adults if she didn't do what they wanted. So, with regret and praying sadly, he activated his Twilight healing, and the now green-yellow aura of it enveloped the celestial couple. beginning to heal them of their recent injuries, removing all traces of the deformities on their faces and bodies. After a few minutes and by the time Issei and Valery were recovered, Rizavum smiled evilly at this. Time to continue. By the time 15 minutes had passed, everything had happened. Rizavum continued to torture and mistreat Issei and Valery, who could do nothing to defend themselves, since doing so would mean that their parents would die, and they did not have the will to make such a sacrifice. The torture on the part of Lucifer's son was too much that when the celestial couple seemed on the verge of unconsciousness, Asia healed them both by obligation of the enemy and by her own will, and at the same time she prayed with all his strength while crying. And the torture by Lucifer's son was more brutal and cruel in all those minutes, which seemed eternal. The celestial couple was healed of their wounds when they were in a serious state, the ex-nun healed them, and the three adults looked with anger and sadness at what was happening. They had even begged them to stop with this, but the two Lucifer demons did not listen and continued with their thing. Obviously, while all this was happening, Rizavum calmly revealed the truth of all this to Issei's parents, telling them everything that the three of them and their friends have had to go through and so on. Although the explanation surprised both adults, they still kept shouting to stop with this. And when those long minutes of torture and agony finally seemed to end, Gigi. It seems that you were left without any magic. Rizavum watched with pleasure as the blonde panted with regret and with traces of dried tears in his eyes. It seems that even he became dehydrated, that not even a tear comes out. And you are worse. In front of the son of Lucifer, lying on the ground were Issei and Valery, who were in a very serious condition. Their bodies hurt seriously, they felt their bones were broken, and their shoulders and legs were pierced, with blood staining their clothes. And the floor. Their faces were fuller, but they were still a little bruised and so on. Although Valery did everything possible to protect his belly so that it wouldn't be hurt. Kuroka's protective jutsu plus his own magic helped prevent the worst. Hahaha. How easy. Rizavum would get up from the ground pleased with what had happened. Had won. Because you two no longer have the strength and the blonde no longer has magic, I will give you this last parting gift. Your last moments with your families. Saying this, the son of Lucifer would snap his fingers, undoing the magic ropes of the three adults. And when Rizavum got out of the way and gave them a free pass, the three fathers ran towards where his children were, taking them in their arms. My baby. My baby. Mickey, with tears in her eyes, looked at the state of her son. Not even in her worst nightmares did she imagine seeing him like this. My baby. Elizabeth hugged her daughter with happiness and sadness while she pampered her. Valery cried at that. I really missed that about his mother. Be sorry. Valery spoke very barely due to the pain. I wanted to protect you. So that you wouldn't suffer anymore. Sniff. Silly. Elizabeth hugged her daughter and caressed her hair, giving her comfort. I felt empty and alone all these years. I felt like something was missing in my life. And I found out about this. Sniff. If we weren't in this situation, I would give you a good scolding. Valery smiled as best he could at what he heard. He really expected that. I am sorry. If I lied to you. Issei spoke as best he could, the pain was intense. I didn't want to involve them in this. Maybe. I should have told them before, but it doesn't matter anymore, puppy. We are here. Mommy and daddy are here. Guru caressed the head of her son, who smiled regretfully. He didn't want it to be this way for them to find out about this. Ooh, oh, what a beautiful moment. Rizavum spoke with sarcasm, mockery and disgust in her tone. And at the same time disgusting. But anyway. Raising his hand, the demon would carry a magical sphere. You will be able to enjoy the family moment of it. On the other side. No matter what. And we don't care what happens to us. We won't let hurt our children. Boru, Mickey and Elizabeth shouted determinedly, hugging their children tightly, ready to protect them with their bodies. As you wish. Rizavum would point the powerful magic sphere at them. So. But that scream, the powerful sphere of magic went against the unprotected young people with the three adults who were ready to receive the impact, but suddenly they heard how the blast hit something and it wasn't them. And looking ahead, everyone looked almost in shock at as Asia stood in front of her friends and the three adults with her hands extended in front and a defensive circle displayed. Not to mention that she was trembling. Seriously. Brat. Rizavum clicked his tongue when he saw how the blonde had energy left, but it looked like they were the last ones. Since Asia had bloodlines in the corner of her lips. You're more annoying than I thought. No. I let them hurt my family. Even though she wanted to cry, Asia couldn't bring any tears to her eyes. She was dry. This time. I will protect you. You have the will, girl, but It's not enough without mercy, Rizavam launched another magical blast, which impacted the blonde's defensive circle, which cracked, and the girl did everything possible to not fall and remain standing. Something that bothered the devil damn brat full once and for all, she fired another magical blast at him, which made the blonde retreat, and her defense almost fell. Asia. Issei extended her hand in pain, wanting to reach her. Please. Stop. Go. You have to. I won't do it, Asia screamed and raised her voice firmly. I won't abandon them. They are my family, the only one I have ever had in my entire life, not even death will make me abandon them. Ah. It seems that they are clinging to stupid things. Listen to this, brat. We are demons. Kindness is not our thing. Feeling empathy and clinging to that sentimentality is a weakness and a poison in our race. Even though you are a demon, you cling to something stupid, and that is why you are weak. And no. It's not. Asia would stand firm with regret and pain. Even among evil beings there are good people, I know. It is not a weakness. Even with all this. I have faith that we do not make any mistakes. And because of that, if that's how things are. Rizavam would charge a powerful blast of demonic light, which would kill her without problems, then he succumbs with that pathetic belief and faith. With that scream, he launches the powerful blast against the defenseless blonde. Time seemed to slow down before it, as if the adrenaline gave speed to the senses. Asia saw that attack going against her, threatening to end her life, but even so, she did not flinch or falter, being determined to receive it. While a golden glow appeared in her eyes. The sigh, the joint cry of Issei and her parents was heard, and I will protect them. Asia looked unfazed at that attack that was against her, and just before she hit it, a golden aura and light surrounded her. And that was overshadowed by the bright dark explosion of the attack that she hit him squarely, blinding everyone momentarily. When the dark glow of that explosion of the attack dissipated, everyone could see something that surprised them without a doubt. In front of her family was Asia. Who had her arms extended forward with her gaze gotcha and a majestic golden and green aura surrounded her. That was. She got it. Valery understood what Albion meant. That phenomenon is one that those who have already seen it know. In her place, Asia would look straight and determined at the two Lucifer demons, who felt a bad feeling when they saw the blonde like that. I always felt like a burden. Since I became a demon I felt like I wasn't up to the task, but I won't think that anymore. I promised myself not to be a burden anymore. After the mistake I made. By Issei. My family. And the world. I will fight. Asia's golden green aura seemed to increase after his words, and as she joins her hands, as if she were praying. Balance breaker. The glow and golden green aura increased even more after those words, which left those who knew them in total shock. When the glow stopped, Asia was seen that she had not changed, but the rings on her fingers were gone, and there were only a pair of gold bracelets with reddish details on her wrists and a small green jewel on each bracelet. Furthermore, her aura was golden scarlet with slight jade accents and, as an extra, there was a golden angel halo on her head and a pair of white angel wings on her back. Twilight healing, balance breaker, twilight holy divinity. The ex-nun showed off her bracelets as her demon wings also extended from her back. His mirror image and presence, added to his two demon wings and the two angel wings and the angel halo, made Asia look like a combination of a demon and an angel at the same time. This subspecies of balance breaker reflected the blonde's desire to have wanted the two different pairs of wings on her looked majestic, along with the dark glow of her scarlet gold aura with slight jade accents. And her aura emanates that combined sacred and demonic presence. Sacred demonic. Rizavam clicked his tongue angrily at it, persistent brats. But Rizavam backed away silently without anyone noticing. He must act now. Don't think a balance breaker will make a difference. I will cancel them. Rizavam would launch a burst of demonic light larger and more powerful than all the previous ones, but undeterred, Asia raised her hand and created a defensive circle that she used to not only block the attack but also deflect it to the side. An event that left everyone speechless. Asia was also surprised at her own feat, but she can't waste this miracle. So quickly, Asia raised a large defensive circle that separated her and her family from Rizavam. Issei, Valery san, it's time for revenge. Asia with one hand pointed towards those mentioned, and her scarlet gold aura with slight jade details began to envelop them both. Issei and Valery could feel the warmth of Asia's new aura. They were actually feeling better. They won't do it. Rizavam attacked head-on to stop that, managing to penetrate the blonde's defensive circle after delivering a couple of blows and following her path. Even with that, Asia with her other hand pointed towards her enemy, beginning to create multiple defensive circles, one in front of the other, to slow down Rizavam from his advance. Rizavam crossed the defenses almost as if nothing had happened. They only held him for less than 2 seconds. And when there was only one defense left, Asia began to put all her energy into this defense, as well as finishing healing the celestial couple. Already in front of the girl, Rizavam delivered a strong blow that was just shy of colliding with Asia's defensive circle. One said blow hits her target, the blonde's ability would be cancelled immediately, but as if nothing had happened and at blinding speed, someone had caught Rizivum's fist, it was a red gauntlet and penetrate yourself. Issei was in front of Asia, with a boosted gear materialized and stopping Rizivum's blow almost without problems. All this while the last wounds on her body healed and disappeared, not only because of Asia's aura, but also thanks to her healing factor. Asia, you did well. You saved us. Issei spoke to the girl without turning to see her. Now it's our turn, you've done enough. San. Asia smiled happily when she saw him well and healthy. Brat Rizivum wanted to withdraw his fist from him, but the brunette wouldn't allow it. The red-black Tauki enveloped the young man. Rizivum tried to hit him with his other hand, but Issei caught said blow with his other hand. Impertinent vermin, you're the vermin here. With his red-black-green aura surrounding him, and when it dissipated, he showed himself to Issei with his scale mail armor activated, and I will not forgive you for this. Penetrate yourself. Quickly, and with said command, Issei gave Rizivum a strong and quick kick in the abdomen, moving him a couple of meters away. With that, he charged head-on at the demon, ready to hit him with his raised fist. It won't do you any good to try. Rizivum raised his hand and caught the Sekiryute's blow, but to his surprise, the young man's armor did not disappear in the area he touched. But what? Nice try. With confidence, Issei pulled Rizivum by the arm with which he caught his blow, and with his other hand, he hit him in the face. That disconcerted him a little. Dividing gear, the right white gauntlet made its appearance before the call. Now receive this, damned son of the devil. Penetrate yourself. With this command, Issei began to deliver a rain of blows to Rizivum, who could barely defend himself. A blow to the face, block, a blow to the chest, block, a strong knee, etc. And to finish it off. Divide, 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 divide. Each blow from Issei was accompanied by using the power of Hakuryuku, divide, which, being reinforced with penetrate, gave a fearsome combination. One that was seriously affecting Rizivum, whose power was waning, that now seemed pathetic. How is this possible? Rizivum shouted, frustrated and indignant, receiving a strong blow to the face that made him recoil and spit blood. My sacred gear canceller. It's useless. Issei would launch a fierce reddish flame from his mouth at the demon, who barely covered himself from that with a defensive circle, thanks to Drake's unique ability, penetrate, your ability from which you boasted so much. It's useless now. Absurd. I am possible. It doesn't matter what sacred gear. Even if it's a longinus. My sacred gear canceller can't lose. Rizivum exclaimed with frustration and anger in his expression. All this happened while they were seen by Valery, who was already better, along with Asia and the three fathers. All happy to see Issei's superiority in battle. Now, he is the only one who can face and defeat Lucifer's son. Without remembering that they forgot someone. Then let's conclude this. Pathetic, ancient and inferior demon. Issei said the forbidden words that hit Rizivum's pride hard, while the young man extended his arms and hands joined in front of him, beginning to channel a lot of energy. I am not inferior, and do not look down on me. I am the son of Lucifer, the legitimate destroyer of worlds. Rizivum, furious, with his outstretched hand, created a magical circle that began to charge and channel all the energy he had. Both opponents charged their attacks with everything they had, and when it seemed like they were ready to start a clash of powers. Suddenly, and to everyone's surprise, but more so for Lucifer's son, the blade of a sword had come out of Rizivum's chest, and its blood began to stain him. As he could, Rizivum turned to see the person responsible for it, and he was speechless when he saw him. Son. Plan fulfilled. Rizivum smiled calmly, showing no remorse about it. Goodbye, father. Holding tightly to his sword, Kitswakithorn, Rizivum would make the weapon emanate his terrifying aura and envelop it in his demonic light. With this, the energy of the demonic light began to spread throughout Rizivum's body, which had shined a little, but with that great cry of agony and shining brighter, so that later the glow would cease. Rizivum's body would turn grayish and would dissolve like dust, which flew away with the wind. Issei, Valery, Asia and the three adults couldn't believe their eyes. Rizivum just killed his own father. Why? It's time. Rizivum would take out the Saint Grail in front of the young people, who were excited to see it. They had to recover it, and the Grail would shine, and everyone would see how a grayish orb disappeared from the place. What was that? Perhaps. Rats, my daughter, prepare yourselves. Because here begins the end of the world. After saying his words and before any of the young people could do anything, suddenly, the entire place would start to seriously shake. It seemed like it was going to collapse. Valery covered the three adults with his arms and hands. Wings of divine dividing, while Asia stood in front of them. What have you done, Rizivum? Valery shouted and asked. What must be done? The resurrection of 666. The three young people were horrified by what Rizivum said. So soon, ha 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 ha. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, you have been playing in the palm of my hand, doing everything I had predicted you would do, even though what happened just now was unexpected, and I now regret certain things. It doesn't matter, the original objective has already been achieved, and sacrificing my father was the last remaining stage to awaken that beast. The tremors began to get stronger and the ground in the area began to crack seriously, with debris falling through the fissures that were created. Let's get out of here. Valery would quickly carry his mother in her arms, ready to take flight and with her armor already activated. Issei and Asia nodded in agreement and went for the chestnut tree's parents. Issei carried his father, and Asia carried his mother. But the three young people would fly at high speed from that building that seemed to collapse, crossing the wall with force after Issei launched a blast that destroyed the wall. And already outside the building, the young people could feel how all of Greece trembled at what was happening. And in front of them, the building where they were before would completely collapse and something would come out of the dust and debris that was still falling. Something very big and with an aura and presence that made the three young people feel absolute fear, including Dragon Albion from the Sacred Gears. Ha 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 ha, this is war, everything is for the new perfect and grateful world. Razavam appeared first among the smokescreen created, flying with his 12 demon wings. And then, when the great smokescreen began to dissipate, a huge being was seen. A ridiculously huge one. Its eyes far exceed several hundred meters, surpassing the Great Red. The being has the appearance of a great beast with different animal features and 7 necks, 7 heads, lion, leopard, bear, dragon, with 10 horns on each head. As well as 7 long and thick tails of different shapes. He also has 4 sturdy arms and 2 legs that are even thicker than his arms. His main body is that of a primate leaning forward and is covered in black fur and what appear to be scales all over his body. Just by seeing that, the three young people understood everything. The being in front of them is none other than the beast of the apocalypse that is recorded in the Bible, the same one that the biblical God had sealed at the cost of his own life in last 666, Trihixa, had awakened. The war for the world and its future was about to begin. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.